Chapter 125. However, no matter how hard Shinji racked his brains, he would never categorize Yun Jian as a secret agent or an assassin. After all, Yun Jian's age was obvious. However, her skills didn't match her age. "Wait. Miss Yin, please wait," Duan Lei said as he rushed up to the stage and stopped Yun Jian from killing Shinji. "Miss Yin, please spare Shiniji's life for the sake of our boss." Having witnessed what Yun Jian was capable of, Duan Lei felt genuine respect for her as he spoke to her hastily. Although Shinji deserved to die, he was a member of Countrywise national arena team. Killing him was equivalent to killing a key figure that Countrywise had groomed. Naturally, Countrywise people would not let it go. This was no longer a matter of personal grudges. It would lead to a bloody battle, and the consequences would be severe. "You want me to let him go?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows as she held the pistol and patted the black muzzle on Shiniji's face twice. Faced with the young lady's questioning, Duan Lei could not help but gulp. Finally, he mustered up his courage and nodded. "Yes. Sure." Yun Jian's casual words made everyone present heave a sigh of relief. After all, this was a competition. Shiniji's drawing of a pistol was enough to make everyone afraid. If Yun Jian were to kill someone in public, many people present would probably lose sleep for several nights. At that moment, Yun Jian's eyes suddenly sharpened. She lifted her foot from Shiniji's back and took 2 steps back to stabilize herself. Then she said to Duan Lei, "I can let him go." At that point, even Shinji, who was lying on the ground and starting to feel dizzy, breathed a sigh of relief. The one thing he regretted the most was underestimating Yun Jian. "Don't mess with her." "But his hand, I want it." Yun Jian's casual words were suddenly heard in the next second. What followed was the crisp sound of a gunshot. Bang! Bang! The gunshot sounded and the gun fell. 2 bullets pierced through Shiniji's wrist and into his bone marrow. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" Shinji howled in pain. When the bullet entered his hand, it was as if it had penetrated a piece of wood, piercing his liver and spleen. "Ah!" The screams came from the spectators' seats. Spear! Yun Jian actually fired the gun. Compared to some timid girls, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were full of passion. Although they were also afraid, they couldn't help but admire Yun Jian from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone present had seen Shiniji's previous attitude. Shinji had not only ridiculed Yun Jian, but more importantly, he had ridiculed Country Z. He had ridiculed their country. Just based on this point alone, even if Shinji died 10,000 times, it wouldn't be enough to appease the hatred in their hearts. Looking at his wrists that were shot by the pistol, Shinji fainted. Yun Jian's 2 shots not only crushed Shiniji's dignity, but also ended his career as a boxer. Because Shiniji's meridians were broken, it was equivalent to his hands being crippled. The most basic requirement for a boxer was to have a pair of strong hands. After Yun Jian fired the shot, she threw the pistol to Duan Lei and said, "Tell your boss that I've won the match." After she finished speaking, she turned around and walked out of the ring. Duan Lei hurriedly caught the pistol that Yun Jian had thrown to him. He swallowed his saliva and turned around to clean up the mess. Seeing that the match had ended, the protagonist, Yun Jian, also walked out. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others hurriedly ran out after her. Chapter 126. Before Yun Jian could step out of the arena, Zhang Xiaofeng's urgent voice came from behind her. "Master, master! Master, wait for us!" She turned around and looked up at them with a faint smile. "The arena is over. It's dark now. It's time to go home." Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest, who were running up behind her, could not help but be speechless. They muttered in their hearts, "Shouldn't you explain something? Master, what happened just now? Why did you fight with that foreigner? Also, your posture just now was so cool. By the way, how did you throw the knife out just now? That move was so powerful. It was like a living version of Xiao Li's flying knife." Zhang Xiaofeng's words were fired like a machine gun. "Stop," Yun Jian ordered. This voice shut Zhang Xiaofeng up on the spot. He did not say anything else. "How am I supposed to answer you with so many questions at once?" Yun Jian raised her beautiful eyebrows and smiled shyly like a young girl. At this moment, Yun Jian seemed to have turned into a fresh and beautiful young girl. It was as if the young girl who was dismissive of Shiniji just now did not exist at all. Then we'll answer them one by one. Master, why were you the one who fought with that foreigner just now? Also, why didn't you tell us this earlier? Zhang Xiaofeng asked the question that everyone wanted to know. Pairs of black eyes stared at Yun Jian in unison. Yun Jian pursed her lips and finally opened her mouth. She reached out and snapped her fingers in the air. Then, she pursed her lips at Zhang Xiaofeng and smiled mysteriously. Take a guess. After that, she turned around and did not intend to explain further. However, what Yun Jian did not expect was that Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest would follow closely behind her, begging her to teach them the domineering moves just now. Even Gu Heng followed closely behind Yun Jian. He even apologized to Yun Jian for his previous actions. This caused Zhang Xiaofeng to brag to Gu Heng and the others somewhat childishly. This is my master. Yun Jian finally got rid of Zhang Xiaofeng and the group of people who were chasing her to get to the bottom of things. She set foot on the road home. It was chilly at night, especially when it was close to winter and autumn. The weather changed quickly, and the temperature difference between day and night was large. Yun Jian was wearing a jacket today, but she still felt a little cold. As they walked past a street lamp, a sports car drove past them and stopped beside Yun Jian. Yun Jian had not expected the car to stop. She pulled her jacket around herself and turned around. Coincidentally, she saw Ce sitting in the Lamborghini looking at her. He tilted his head, and his chiseled features became clearer under the street lights. Get in the car. Ce spat out 2 words from his beautiful thin lips. Yun Jian did not stand on ceremony. She immediately walked over to open the door of the Lamborghini and sat in the front passenger seat. The heater in the car warmed up Yun Jian's body temperature. Why are you wearing so little every time? Do you want to freeze to death? Ce raised the temperature in the car again and glanced at Yun Jian. Yun Jian opened her mouth, but found that she could not refute him. In the end, Yun Jian only said one sentence. Why are you looking for me? Ce paused, and a trace of warmth appeared on his flawless face. I'm taking you to a banquet. I'll be back tomorrow. Auntie has already informed you, so you don't have to worry about staying out all night. As he spoke, he did not allow Yun Jian to resist at all. He stepped on the accelerator and sped off. By the time Yun Jian reacted, Ce had already taken her to the back of the mountain. They boarded Ce's private jet and hurried to Country M. Chapter 127. Country M, New York. New York was located in the southeastern part of Country M along the Atlantic Ocean. It was Country M's largest city and largest port. It was a world-class international metropolis. Ce's private jet flew over New York's airspace and finally landed in an empty space at an airport. Because it was a private jet, there was no need to transfer planes in between. Thus, the flight took less than 10 hours. Due to the time difference between Country Z and Country M, it was around 6 o'clock in the morning in Country Z. However, it was already 6 o'clock in the evening in Country M. It was also dinner time. Yun Jian took a nap on the plane. This was the first time she had slept so soundly since her rebirth. When she woke up, the plane had already landed on land. Yun Jian rubbed her eyes and got up from the soft cushion. She stretched and suddenly felt that something was amiss. Cushion. She turned her head and was surprised to find that she had fallen asleep leaning on Ce's lap. What was going on? She remembered that after she boarded the private jet, Ce did not explain the situation to her. She looked at the scenery outside the window and gradually fell asleep. However, she had clearly chosen a soft cushion to fall asleep on the plane. Why was her head lying on Ce's lap when she woke up? Could it be that he had moved her head to his lap? Yun Jian pursed her lips slightly when she thought of this. Even if he had moved her head from the cushion to his lap, why didn't she feel anything at all? This shouldn't be the case. How could she let down her usual guard and fall asleep peacefully without any fear? You're awake. Ce's hoarse and magnetic voice sounded from above her head. Yun Jian looked up and saw Ce's handsome face turn to the side. His fair and slender fingers were scratching his messy short black hair. His earlobes were slightly red. Yun Jian swallowed her saliva and pursed her lips to reveal a stiff smile. Have we arrived? Yes. See nodded. He stretched out his slender fingers and opened the door of the plane. He turned sideways and jumped out first. Yun Jian bent over and also jumped out of the cabin door. After Yun Jian landed on the ground, Si grabbed her little hand and walked towards the street. Yun Jian was stunned by Si's actions. She wanted to shake off his hand, but found that he was not as strong as her. This was also the first time she had encountered such a situation. She immediately blushed and lowered her head. Don't look at how Yun Jian could kill people so easily. Even if she saw erotic scenes in her previous life, she could still do it without blushing. However, he felt that Si was different from everyone else. She couldn't describe how she felt. The banquets of the upper class usually started at around 8 o'clock, which meant that there was still some time left. Si smiled beautifully as he held Yun Jian's warm little hand and walked towards one of the top clothing stores in New York. This clothing store was owned by a world-class fashion designer in New York. Usually it received very few customers. However, the customers it received were all world-class bigwigs. As Si held Yun Jian's little hand and walked into the store, Yun Jian saw two men in their 20s walking towards her. When the two men saw Si and Yun Jian holding hands, they couldn't help but be stunned. Then they walked in front of Si and lowered their heads. "Young master, the dress is ready." Yun Jian was also stunned when she saw the two men. They were the two men who had been standing on either side of Si when she had first met Si. Chapter 128. Si nodded slightly. He pulled Yun Jian past the two men and walked towards the changing room. The two men were left dumbfounded. F***CK. Is the young master enlightened? He's even learned how to hold a woman's hand. One of the men rubbed his hands, a trace of surprise appearing on his handsome face. He couldn't hold it in any longer and said to the other man, "Adam, the young master's matters aren't something you and I can casually discuss. Do your job well." The other man, who looked more composed, reminded him before turning to leave. The man called Adam stood there and clicked his tongue twice. He muttered to the more composed man, "Go, go, go, you're the most serious one." Ce had a custom-made lace evening gown for Yun Jian. It was pure black and not revealing at all. This evening gown was designed by the world's top fashion designer and was one of a kind in the world. Its economic value couldn't be measured by money. After Yun Jian changed and came out, she saw that Ce had already changed into a formal suit. Ce's foundation was very good. His handsome face was flawless. His tall nose bridge and deep eyes exuded the aura of a king. The black suit clung to his muscular skin. When Yun Jian came out, Ce's fair and slender fingers tugged at the tie of his suit. From the side, he looked like a still and untainted figure in a painting. He was so handsome and delicate that there was nothing to nitpick about him. Even though Yun Jian had seen many handsome and delicate men in her previous life, none of them could compare to the one in front of her. She was stunned for a few seconds. "What's wrong?" Yun Jian only reacted when she heard a pleasant male voice. Ce narrowed his eyes as he sized up the young lady in the black lace evening gown. Every time he met Yun Jian's eyes, he would suppress his distant feelings towards women and wanted to take a step closer to her. When he first discovered this, even he couldn't believe it. He knew himself very well. He hated women. Ever since he was young, as long as there were women around, he would feel nauseous. If a woman came close to him, he would feel extremely disgusted. This is a quirk. But it was different for Yun Jian. He could feel it deeply. Yun Jian's petite figure kept floating in front of him. That faint milky fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose, making him feel a little different. That was why he couldn't help but get close to her, and even hold her hand. Therefore, when Ce saw Yun Jian's smooth and tender arms, the lace gown that accentuated her petite figure, and her well-developed twin peaks, he couldn't help but gulp. "Let's go." Yun Jian moved her red lips and walked out directly. Ce paused for a moment as the girl's fragrance dissipated into the distance. Then he strode after her. Country M, New York, the 39th floor of the Triangle Building. In the middle of the room, a dignified and imposing middle-aged man in his 40s was holding a glass of red wine and chatting amicably with a man of the same age in front of him. This dignified middle-aged man was called Si Chu. He was the head of the armaments family Cold Pavilion. Without a doubt, he was also Si Yi's biological father. At this moment, Si Chu was chatting happily with the middle-aged man opposite him. Chapter 129. Si Chu followed the middle-aged man's gaze and saw a 17 or 18-year-old girl standing there. She was pretty and had an outstanding temperament among the group. Of course, as the leader of the arms family, Si Chu did not care about the appearance of his future daughter-in-law. He cared about the marriage between the big families and the friendly relationship between the big families. He nodded at the middle-aged man and praised hypocritically, "Old sure, your daughter is not bad. She has a good temperament." This was Si Chu's highest compliment. He patted the man's shoulder as he spoke. Shurichuan's face lit up. He moved closer to Si Chu and smiled. "Then about the marriage between Ce and my daughter. Of course it's a done deal." Si Chu replied with a laugh and an absolute tone. Shurichuan smiled and lowered his voice to ask Si Chu, "Then does Ce agree to this marriage? How can he not agree to this kind of thing?" "Humph. I'm his father. Can't I make the decision for such a small matter?" Speaking of this, Si Chu suddenly felt as if he had been hit on the trigger point. He said angrily, speaking of his son, he really could not control him. However, he would never lower his head in front of outsiders. Naturally, he had to put on a "I'm the father, I make the decision" attitude. Hearing Si Chu's affirmative tone, Shurichuan seemed to be relieved. At this moment, a man walked over and whispered in Si Chu's ear. Si Chu immediately reacted and moved his old face closer to Shurichuan. He smiled and said, "My son is here. Hurry up and ask your daughter to come over. Let the two of them meet." Shurichuan was happy when he heard this. He hurriedly waved at his daughter Shirlaixiang. Shirlaixiang had been waiting there for a long time. When she saw her father waving at her, she hurriedly ran over. Her heart was filled with joy and nervousness like a young girl. She had met Ce a year ago and fell in love with him at first sight. The young man's handsome face kept appearing in her mind, and she could not get it out of her mind. Although they were far apart, ever since they met, she swore that she would marry him. On the other hand, the Shi family and the Si family were both military families, and the two families had a mutual interest. The upper-class aristocratic families usually like to unite their families through marriage to strengthen the trust between them. Although it was the modern era, these old customs could not be changed. Beep. The only elevator beside the banquet hall opened. Shirlaixiang stood beside her father Shurichuan. Her entire body was tense. She even ran her fingers through a few strands of her hair, afraid that her imperfections would be exposed. Only she knew the nervousness in her heart when she saw the person she missed dearly. The moment the elevator doors opened, however, what everyone saw was Ce, who was perfect to the extreme, as well as the petite girl standing beside him, who was also extremely beautiful. The young girl was wearing a lace gown that outlined her petite figure. Her curvaceous figure was revealed in front of everyone. She was beautiful and elegant. When the two of them stood together, it was as if they were a match made in heaven. They were actually so compatible. Si Chu, Shurichuan, and Shirlaixiang were dumbfounded. Not only the three of them, but everyone present was mesmerized by Ce and Yunjian's stunning appearance. They were unable to extricate themselves. Ce held Yunjian's small hand and walked out of the elevator step by step. They stood in front of everyone. Yunjian realized that Ce had only glanced at Si Chu when he walked in front of him. Without saying a word, he pulled her to the side. "Damn brat, stop right there. What kind of attitude is this? How can you leave without saying a word when you see me? Where is your upbringing? If I didn't know better, I would have thought that you were a bastard with a mother but no father. Also, who is this girl beside you?" Si Chu felt that he had lost face and spoke to Ce angrily. Ce turned his head to look at Si Chu. He held Yunjian's hand tightly and said coldly to Si Chu, "My mother is already dead. That woman is not my mother." When he said this, Yunjian could clearly feel the coldness and loneliness in Ci's voice. Chapter 130. When Yunjian heard Ci's words, she was shocked. But when she scanned the room and saw Shirlaixiang, who was standing not far away from Si Chu, she suddenly understood. This woman was the fiancée Siyi's father had arranged for Siyi, right? This banquet was probably used by Siyi's father to announce Siyi and Shi Laixiang's engagement. It wasn't strange for upper-class families to use marriage to consolidate their interests. Yin Jian smiled. It seemed like Siyi wasn't satisfied with this arranged marriage, and was planning to use her as an excuse. Siyi's attitude towards her was quite good, so she would naturally help her. Nonsense. Nonsense. It's fine if you usually make a fuss, but today you even found a woman? Are you trying to anger me to death? Si Chu flew into a rage. When Siyi mentioned that his mother was already dead, Si Chu felt like he had been exposed in a scandal, as he shuddered in rage. Si Chu was the head of the Cold Court, an armaments aristocratic family. After he married Siyi's mother, he divorced Siyi's mother in order to expand the Cold Court's power and influence. He then married the daughter of another armaments aristocratic family. At the same time, Si Chu also forced Siyi's mother to stay by his side. In the end, Siyi's mother became depressed and committed suicide due to depression. Today, in order to consolidate his position in the Cold Court, Si Chu planned to use Siyi's marriage to form a marriage alliance with the Shi family. But he didn't expect that Siyi would have such a huge reaction. He even found a woman to humiliate him in public. This made Si Chu, an internationally renowned armaments tycoon, completely furious. Brother Siyi, it's wrong of you to do this. Don't make uncle angry. Shi Laixiang looked at Yin Jian's and Siyi's intertwined hands. She dug her fingertips into her skin and played the role of the good guy. She spoke coyly to Siyi in a gentle voice. What are you? What does my business have to do with you? Siyi cast a sidelong glance at Shi Laixiang, not giving her any face at all. Shi Laixiang had originally planned to speak up after Si Chu had spoken. This way, she could improve her image in front of Si Chu, and let Siyi see her gentle side, and have a good impression of her. But who would have thought that Siyi wouldn't give her any face at all? She looked at Yin Jian, who was standing next to Siyi, and she became even angrier. Her eyes turned red because the person she had been longing for had said such things to her. Si Chu felt humiliated at once. He knew that he couldn't control his son, so he pointed at Yin Jian and threatened her. Which family's young lady are you from? Rong family? Wen family? Fang family? I don't care which family's young lady you're from. Get out of here now, or your family will disappear from the international stage forever because of you. The aristocratic families that Si Chu had pointed out were all internationally renowned big shots. It was obvious that he thought that Yin Jian was a young lady from one of these aristocratic families. Yin Jian was amused when she heard that. She narrowed her eyes and met Si Chu's murderous gaze fearlessly in front of everyone. Her red lips curled up. I'm a young lady from the Yin family. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yin Jian. I live in Country Z's Longmen City. My mom is a waitress at a hotel. Country Z's Longmen City. A waitress at a hotel. Everyone latched on to these words. Si Chu stomped his feet, almost vomiting blood from anger. He thought that the woman his son had found would be a socialite of the upper class, even if she wasn't from an aristocratic family. Chapter 131. Si Chu was furious. He did not threaten Yin Jian anymore. Instead, he waved his hand and called for his bodyguards, intending to chase her out. Someone chase her out. If Yin Jian was a young lady from an aristocratic family, Si Chu might have given her some face. However, Yin Jian had said it herself. She was just a person with no status. Si Chu was naturally fearless and prepared to chase her out on the spot. He had lost all his face today. There was a saying that one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. However, after today's incident, he had no face left. A few bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses surrounded Yin Jian and Si. I'll see who dares to touch my people. Si sneered. He calmly pulled out a pistol from the holster at his waist, pulled the trigger, and pointed it at Si Chu. Si had already decided to shed all pretense of cordiality. Ever since Si could remember, he had never acknowledged Si Chu as his father. He had not even called him dad for so many years. In his impression, this so-called father was the murderer who had directly forced his mother to commit suicide. He could still remember that his mother had committed suicide due to depression. Si Chu had always locked his mother up and kept her at home in the name of love. Later, his mother had suffered from depression and was not allowed to seek treatment. Si Chu was a person who cared about his reputation. He did not allow outsiders to know about his family's dirty linen. Hence, when Si Yi's mother had suffered from depression, he was not allowed to seek treatment. Hence, Si Yi's mother had been too depressed and could not bear the torture of her illness. Hence, she committed suicide. Furthermore, she had died in front of Si Yi, who was only 5 years old at the time. He still could not forget the bloody corpse of his mother. At that time, he was just a child. Since then, he had developed an extreme sense of disgust and alienation toward all women. It had been the same for 19 years. It was not until he met Yun Jian that he realized that she was different from other girls and women. He did not hate Yun Jian. On the contrary, he had a different feeling towards her. Bastard! Are you going to kill your father for this woman? Si Chu was so angry that his hands were trembling. Back then, he had divorced Si Yi's mother and married the daughter of another aristocratic family for the sake of expanding Cold Pavilion's influence. Today, the Cold Court had become the vanguard of the world's military families. But his most beloved son had turned against him. He had only loved one woman all these years, and that was Si Yi's mother. But for the sake of so-called face and power, he gave up these feelings of love. He had countless mistresses in his life, and it wasn't that he didn't have any other sons or daughters. However, Si Yi was the only one he had chosen as the successor of the Cold Court. In Si Chu's heart, everything he did was for Si Yi. But what about him? He actually wanted to kill him for a woman. Si Chu felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Shi Laixiang stood at the side and watched as Si Yi pulled out his gun. She was both in love and afraid of his handsome posture. She swore in her heart that she must get this man. As for Yun Jian, in everyone's eyes, she was just an insignificant person. Without Si Yi, she was nothing. Beep. At this moment, the elevator door opened again. A woman with a tight figure walked out of the elevator side by side with a man in his 20s in a blue floor-length evening gown. A group of people followed behind the woman and the man. Of course, they weren't ordinary people. On the contrary, they were full of vigor. Even Si Chu couldn't help but take a second look when he saw these people. When he saw the leader of the group of people, a woman in a blue evening gown, he was shocked. The woman's exposed left wrist was imprinted with a skull symbol. A skull symbol on her wrist was the symbol of the Kosha mercenaries. This woman was actually a member of the Kosha mercenaries. As for the man beside the woman, there was a large scar on his neck. It looked as if it had been cut by a knife, and it made people shiver. Seeing this, Si Chu couldn't help but gulp. If he guessed correctly, this man was in a cooperative relationship with the Kosha mercenaries. He was one of the 4 leaders of the underground assassin organization, the Enhun organization, Shuang. If the name of the Kosha mercenaries made people shiver, then the Enhun organization was a hellish existence. Countless international assassins and secret agents were from the Enhun organization. Chapter 132. Yun Jian was the king of secret agents in her previous life, the world's top secret agent, slaying God. She was indeed a secret agent trained by the world's top underground assassin organization, Enhun Group. Of course, Enhun's underlings could not control her due to her extraordinary capability in her previous life. Slaying God was the only secret agent in Enhun's history to successfully break free from the organization's control. At the same time, she started killing at the age of 12 and left Enhun Group when she was 14. In the same year, she killed the previous boss of Kosha mercenaries and developed her own force. Therefore, the king of secret agents, Slaying God, was known as a legend in the underworld. The only one who could be mentioned in the same breath as the king of secret agents, Slaying God, was the leader of Enhun Group. The leader of Enhun Group was a mystery. No one had ever seen him, not even knowing if he was a man or a woman, old or young. The only ones who had seen the leader of Enhun Group were the 4 leaders of the organization. Shuang was one of them. As for the Kosha mercenaries' forces, there was no need to mention them. Enhun Group and Kosha mercenaries were 2 major organizations that monopolized the entire underground organization. Even Si Chu, the master of Cold Pavilion, a military family, had to lower his head in fear when he saw people from these two major assassin organizations. When Si Chu saw the woman in a beautiful blue evening gown and the man with a huge scar on his neck, his legs turned to jelly. He could not care less about his son Ce as he hurried to greet them. His smile was stiff, but it was forced as he extended his hand to shake their hands. What a rare guest. We welcome both of you to attend tonight's banquet. Si Chu was the one who had arranged the banquet. His goal was to arrange a marriage between his son and Shi Ichuan's daughter. He did not expect the kosher mercenaries and an Hun group to be here, so he was so embarrassed that his face was about to burst. However, the woman in the blue evening gown walked past Si Chu and went straight to Yun Jian, ignoring his goodwill. She stood in front of Yun Jian and greeted respectfully, "Sister Jian." The woman in the blue evening gown was obviously Snake Lizard, who had changed into the black robe that covered her entire body to reveal her sexy figure. The two words Snake Lizard caused everyone present to suck in a deep breath. Most of the people there were businessmen and politicians from prominent families and families. The biggest symbol of Gusha mercenaries was the skull mark on their wrists. It was a mark that could not be imitated by outsiders. Someone who could make Gusha mercenaries stand in front of her and greet her as Sister Jian respectfully was a rare sight. How could this girl, who claimed to be from a small town in Z country, and whose mother was an ordinary hotel attendant, be an ordinary person? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. She was related to kosher mercenaries? Yun Jian nodded slightly at Snake Lizard. She did not expect to meet Snake Lizard here. Snake Lizard had kept a low profile when she returned to Longmen City the last time. She was dressed very tightly, so the skull mark on her wrists was not exposed. Today Snake Lizard had changed into a blue evening gown. Her enchanting female body was faintly discernible. At the same time, the skull mark on her wrists was also intimidating. The girl in front of him was related to kosher mercenaries? More importantly, the kosher mercenaries who did not even care about Si Chu was calling Yun Jian, Sister Jian respectfully. What did this mean? Si Chu started to twitch. Shi Laixiang was annoyed when she saw everyone's attention on Yun Jian. Chapter 133. When Shi Laixiang said this, she even shook Shi Ichuan's hand and acted like a spoiled child. However, Shi Laixiang's words attracted everyone's attention. Let the internationally famous assassin organization that kills without blinking an eye be polite? This Shi Laixiang must be stupid. Was she that lucky? Everyone snorted, but in front of Yun Jian and the others, no one dared to say anything for fear of implicating themselves. When Shi Ichuan heard his daughter say this, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He lowered his voice and shouted at Shi Laixiang, "Xiang, shut up!" Unexpectedly, Shi Laixiang did not notice the change in the atmosphere at all. She shouted even more confidently, "Dad, they were in the wrong. They were rude. That's what you've always taught us. We have to be polite. Those who don't have manners are a bunch of lowly and uncultured people. These kinds of people will never be able to show their faces." Shi Laixiang's words were clear and logical. Even she felt that it was reasonable. When Shi Ichuan heard his daughter's words, he was so scared that he almost turned into a puddle of water. Of course, he could tell that his daughter was scolding Yun Jian in a roundabout way. "Shi Laixiang, shut your mouth." Shi Ichuan's trembling finger pointed fiercely at his daughter, even roaring out her full name. However, he could not explain it to his daughter now. If they went against the kosher mercenaries, the Shi family would probably be wiped out. Because the kosher mercenaries was an organization made up of international elite assassins. Their hands were stained with countless blood. They were so powerful that they were intimidating and terrifying. Simply put, the kosher mercenaries could wipe out the Shi family effortlessly. "Dad, you're yelling at me again." Shi Laixiang felt even more wronged. At the same time, she felt even more indignant that Yun Jian had stolen her limelight at the banquet. Yun Jian naturally heard the conversation between Shi Laixiang and Shi Ichuan. She curled her lips and glanced over, but she did not say anything. She did not care about Shi Laixiang's words at all. She had seen many people like Shi Laixiang in her past life. If she killed Shi Laixiang just because of one sentence, then there would be too many people in this world who would want to kill her. Of course, if Shi Laixiang made any further moves, she would definitely make her regret being born. Sichu was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. It was too late for regrets. He never thought that Yun Jian could make the kosher mercenaries bow down to her. As soon as he thought of what he had just said to Yun Jian and what he was going to do, he felt his hair stand on end. Miss Yun, we were blind just now and said something wrong. I hope you won't take it to heart. Sichu was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. His attitude towards Yun Jian had changed completely. Siyi's sword-like eyebrows flashed. He stood beside Yun Jian and smiled at her. He sneered at Sichu's attitude. At the same time, he exchanged glances with Shui Ying, who was standing not far away. What if I insist on taking it to heart? Yun Jian glanced at Sichu and smiled evilly. It made people's hearts tremble. Sichu's heart thumped, and he was sweating profusely. After all, he had been working for many years and had experienced many big situations. He hurriedly smoothed things over and pretended to be calm. Miss Yun's temperament is extraordinary. One look, and I can tell that you are a magnanimous person. Of course you won't take it to heart. This sentence made it clear. If Yun Jian took it to heart, then she would appear to be narrow-minded. Yun Jian smiled sweetly. She pursed her lips and followed Sichu's words. Of course I won't take it to heart. Pausing for a moment, she curled her lips again. But I'm very unhappy. I want something from you. What is it? Sichu and Shi Ichuan heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 134. Since when did he become a thing? Siyi's twinkling eyes narrowed, the corners of his lips curling upwards. However, after hearing Yun Jian's words, he felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. In contrast to Siyi, Sichu, Shi Ichuan, and Shi Laixiang's faces darkened. Sichu and Shi Ichuan had intended to get close to each other by marrying their children, but after Yun Jian's words, both of them turned pale. Shi Laixiang was even paler. When she looked at Yun Jian again, she wanted nothing more than to tear her into pieces. Sichu and Shi Ichuan knew that if they became enemies with the kosher mercenaries because of this, both of their families would be removed from the international scene. Shi Ichuan, on the other hand, was afraid that his precious daughter would cause more trouble if he stayed any longer. So he made up a random excuse and left the banquet in a hurry. Since he and you are truly in love, then I shouldn't break you up. Sichu tried to smooth things over. Today's matter was unexpected, but even so, a sly old fox like Sichu could quickly minimize the impact of this matter on him. Moreover, it was uncertain whether his son Ce would still be together with Yun Jian when the time came. It wasn't too late to bring up this matter after today. When she heard Sichu say truly in love, Yun Jian's eyelids twitched and she blinked. The banquet finally came to an end. Snake Lizard left the banquet hall to attend to her own matters. Yun Jian walked side by side with Ce. Suddenly, she reached out and poked Ce's arm, winking mischievously as she teased. I even sacrificed my reputation to help you just now. You should at least thank me. Those who knew Yun Jian well knew that she didn't joke often. This was a rare occasion when Yun Jian was in the mood to joke with Ce. I never thank people. Ce looked at Yun Jian playfully. Suddenly, her eyes became sharp and her deep eyes lit up under the street lights. But, he paused and looked at Yun Jian from head to toe. You can repay me with your body. Yun Jian was completely dumbfounded. She never thought that the usually cold and arrogant Ce would have such a playboy side. However, before she could think any further, a man in his 20s suddenly walked out from the darkness. The long scar on the man's neck left a deep impression. The person who came was Shuang. Shuang saw that Yun Jian was also here. He paused for a moment, but still went up to Ce and said, Young master. Yun Jian was stunned. She knew very well that Shuang was one of the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization. This was because she was an agent trained by the Inhun organization in her previous life. He's one of your men? Yun Jian asked the question that was bothering her. Ce did not hide it at all as he answered, yes. Yun Jian did not ask further after that. There's no outsider here. Just say it. Ce glanced at Shuang from the corner of his eyes. Ce's words implied that Yin Jian was not an outsider. Shuang nodded and said, "There's a change in the organization." Ce could already tell what had happened from the 5 words. He turned to look at Yun Jian, his handsome face tilted slightly to show her an exquisite outline. "I have something to do. Looks like I can't go back to Longmen City with you. You go back first." For some reason, when Yun Jian heard what he said, it felt like there was something going on between them. Her cheeks heated as she nodded slightly. Ce then sent Yun Jian to his private jet considerately before leaving with Shuang. The private jet took off immediately. As they were more familiar with the journey back, it only took them 8 hours to return to Country Z. Chapter 135. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Yun Jian arrived home on time and carried her bag back to school for the weekend's evening self-study session. When the evening self-study session ended, Chen Xinyi turned around and patted her bulging bag, grinning at Yun Jian. "Jian, I bet you didn't bring any snacks, did you? It's okay though, haha, I stuffed my bag full. We'll eat together tomorrow." Not only did the scene of Yun Jian shooting Shiniji's hand the other day not make Chen Xinyi afraid of distancing herself from her, she was even more affectionate toward her. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. Master. Before his seat had even warmed up after class, Zhang Xiaofeng rushed to Yun Jian's seat and said hot-bloodedly, "Master, you must teach me real skills this time. I'm always ready." In fact, Yun Jian had never promised Zhang Xiaofeng to teach him anything. It was Zhang Xiaofeng who was the one asking her for advice. This time, however, Yun Jian did not evade Zhang Xiaofeng's request. Her smile faded and she looked sharp and serious. "You really want to learn from me?" When Zhang Xiaofeng heard Yun Jian agreeing to his request, he nodded without hesitation. Yes. His reaction was so quick that it was as if he was afraid that Yun Jian would go back on her word. "All right, I'll teach you." Yun Jian's eyes shifted, her initial smile gone. Slaying God had never taken in a disciple in her previous life. All this while, Zhang Xiaofeng had been calling her master, but she had never agreed to his request. Today she planned to make an exception. Yun Jian paused for a moment, and a vicious aura emanated from her body. She looked at Zhang Xiaofeng and said to him in a fierce tone, without the slightest hint of joking, "Be my disciple. I will train you and make you a first-class expert. But the premise is that you are not allowed to complain no matter how hard it is. No matter how hard it is, you can only swallow it in your stomach. If you can't do it, you can say no now. But if you stop halfway, I'll let you know how close you are to death." Yun Jian didn't seem to be joking at all. There was only one meaning she wanted to express. Once you enter this circle, you can't leave. Even if you die, you have to kneel until the end. What's more, if her disciple couldn't even endure this bit of hardship, what right did she have to stand on the same side as her? Slaying God would never accept weaklings around her. Zhang Xiaofeng's eyelids twitched when he heard Yun Jian's words. He knew that Yun Jian was a woman of her words. However, he clenched his fists and said to Yun Jian with determination, "I can do it." "All right." Yun Jian smiled at him and said, "See you at the field tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the morning." "Huh? 4 o'clock?" Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned. 4 o'clock in the south was not even dawn yet. Yun Jian shot him a fierce glare and Zhang Xiaofeng immediately swallowed his words. Chen Xinyi watched from the side and snickered. Early the next morning, the sky was still dark. As expected, Zhang Xiaofeng was caught by Yun Jian for training in the field. Zhang Xiaofeng didn't have any foundation in killing moves. Fortunately, his body was flexible, and he said that he had practiced judo and taekwondo before. Yun Jian made him run around the field. She didn't want to train him to be an expert in fighting. Instead, she wanted him to be someone who could protect himself and kill a high-level assassin. After a whole morning of training, Zhang Xiaofeng was exhausted. However, he obeyed what he said earlier and didn't complain at all. Both of them only walked out of the field and headed to the classroom at 5:50 a.m. At 6:20 a.m., a bus contracted by the school arrived outside the school. The teachers arranged seats for the students one by one, and the bus headed to the location of the spring outing, the forest park. Sitting in the bus, Yun Jian looked at the youthful and excited faces of the students around her, and could not help but smile. Chapter 136. Forest Park was a first-class botanical park in Longmen City. There were professional gardeners taking care of the flora and fauna in the park. At the same time, there were many game venues, and an empty plot of land for tourists to have a barbecue. Therefore, there was an endless stream of tourists visiting during the cool seasons of spring and autumn. Once they got off the bus, the teachers allowed the students to do whatever they wanted. Chen Xini pulled Yun Jian along as she looked around and walked quickly. Zhang Xiaofeng, who was behind them, carried 2 heavy school bags and ran to catch up. He could not help grumbling to Chen Xini. F***CKU Chen Xini. These bags are so heavy, and you have the nerve to ask me to carry them for you. Haha, just take it as training for you. Here, I'm helping you train your physique better. You should be thanking me. Chen Xini stomped her feet and chuckled cheekily. Jian, there's a game of shooting balloons with toy guns over there. You can even win a big doll if you hit the jackpot. You're so accurate, let's go over and play. Chen Xini tugged Yun Jian and ran over excitedly. Zhang Xiaofeng wiped his sweat and groaned inwardly as he carried the 2 heavy school bags. In the end, he gritted his teeth and followed them angrily. The balloon shooting game had only become popular recently. It was available in some parks, scenic spots, or large entertainment venues. Little boys liked to play with toy pistols, sniper rifles, and rifles. This balloon shooting game used this kind of toy rifle to shoot balloons. The bullet fired by the rifle was only a small bullet the size of a soybean. It was not a real bullet and had no lethality, so even if it hit, there was no danger at all. Of course, there was a limit to the number of bullets used in the balloon shooting game. After paying the corresponding amount, the player could shoot 15 bullets and burst a few balloons with each bullet. The corresponding prize would be given according to the number of balloons burst. If each of the 15 bullets could burst a balloon, the player could win the biggest prize, a big doll about a meter in size. Of course, these toy rifles had been tampered with by the boss, so the bullets fired from them were all off target. Otherwise, if everyone got shot, the boss would definitely suffer a loss. Boss, we want to play once. Chen Xini pulled Yun Jian to stand in front of the balloon shooting game table, paid the money, and giggled. The boss was a fat, middle-aged man with a bald head. When he saw that Chen Xini and Yun Jian were playing his game, he rubbed his hands and smiled so widely that his eyes almost became a line. Reaching out to take the money, he was secretly happy, but his mouth said, "Okay." His balloon shooting game was designed to earn the most money from students like Chen Xini and Yun Jian. At this moment, he was naturally overjoyed. He thought, look, 2 more female students have come to give me money. How could people like them hit the jackpot? At that time, as long as there was a small prize, he would make a profit again. Since Yun Jian and Chen Xini were the prettiest, and there was also Zhang Xiaofeng, a popular figure in school, the balloon shooting game gradually attracted a group of students who came to watch the show. Jian, you do it. Chen Xini passed the toy rifle to Yun Jian and pointed at a big doll excitedly, telling Yun Jian, Jian, you can do it. I want that big doll, it's so cute. Yun Jian smiled and took the toy rifle, but she was not ready to aim. Sis Xini, why didn't you let me have that doll if you want it? A man's teasing voice interrupted the conversation and said to Chen Xini, Sis Xini, why didn't you let me have that doll if you wanted it? Everyone looked over at the voice and saw a good-looking boy who was slightly tall and slender walking over. He went to Chen Xini arrogantly and looked at the toy rifle in Yun Jian's hand before he spoke to Chen Xini again in a boastful tone. Sis Xini, have you forgotten that I've officially learned marksmanship from a master? If you want this doll, you can't let a little beauty shoot it for you instead of me. Chapter 137. As the boy spoke, he reached for the toy rifle in Yun Jian's hand. With a frown, Yun Jian turned her hand away and avoided the boy's hand. The boy did not feel awkward as he chuckled and studied Yun Jian from head to toe. Pretty girl, you won't be able to hit a balloon with a gun like this. Why don't I teach you how to do it, Lingyi-chen, aren't you annoying? We're having fun on our own. Are you done? Chen Xini could not help yelling at the boy. Ling Yichen was the son of Chen Sini's father's business partner. He could be considered her childhood playmate as well. However, due to Ling Yichen's boastful personality, Chen Sini did not like to play with him since they were young. Ling Yichen was also known as a playboy in school. Due to his good looks and prominent family background, many girls admired him. He was a boy who changed girlfriends more frequently than he changed clothes. It was because of this that Chen Sini kept a respectful distance from him. "Aya, Sister Sini, who are we? Don't make it sound like we're so distant." Ling Yichen was indeed a master flirt. He managed to turn the awkward situation around with just a few sentences. In spite of it, Ling Yichen's dark eyes were fixed on Yun Jian as he spoke to Chen Sini, looking like he was deep in thought. Chen Sini was dumbfounded for a moment before she realized what was going on. Was Ling Yichen trying to set his sights on Jian Jian? She quickly pulled Yun Jian behind her and said to Ling Yichen, "Ling Yichen, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Jian Jian is my friend. Don't you dare set your sights on her." "That's right. Sini, your cousin supports you," Zhang Xiaofeng chimed in from the side. It was rare for the siblings to be united for once. The atmosphere then turned a little strange. Yun Jian blinked and looked at Chen Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, who were protecting her like a treasure. She couldn't help but grin. "Look at you, Sini. You're talking as if I'm a gangster. Do I look like such a rascal to you?" Ling Yichen laughed and continued to bicker with Chen Sini in his unique teasing voice. "You." Just as Chen Sini was about to flare up at Ling Yichen, Yun Jian turned her delicate face to Chen Sini and asked, "Which doll do you want?" As she spoke, she weighed the toy rifle in her hand. It was only then that Chen Sini regained her senses. Exhaling in relief, she snorted at Ling Yichen and smiled at Yun Jian, pointing at a big bunny doll. "Jian Jian, I want that big bunny." "Okay." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, a clean smile forming on her lips. The crowd was displeased with Yun Jian's confidence. Someone even yelled out, "How can you get this big doll just because you want it? Unless you shoot 15 balloons. Don't talk like you're a sharpshooter. Can you guarantee that you'll hit the balloon every time you shoot?" The disgruntled voice came from Lu Rongrong, who hated Yun Jian to the core. Ling Yichen was annoyed that Yun Jian ignored her right after she opened her mouth, but he had always been a patient man when it came to beautiful women. Ling Yichen flipped his hair coolly. Seeing Lu Rongrong's rude remarks to Yun Jian, he was about to step in and save the damsel in distress to help Yun Jian and make Yun Jian change her opinion of him instantly. All he saw was Yun Jian looking at Lu Rongrong with a grin. She lifted her chin slightly, her hand that held the toy rifle raised, and fired at the balloons without even looking at the cloth that held them. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of balloons exploding when they were hit by the gun echoed in everyone's ears. The girl with the toy rifle did not even look at the cloth. She was shooting blindly. 15 bullets, not a single one missed. Chapter 138. At this moment, even Chen Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, who had seen Yun Jian's marksmanship before, were stunned. She could actually shoot balloons blindly, and not a single one of the 15 bullets missed. Only someone who was very familiar with guns could do this. And she, Yun Jian, was just an ordinary student. The surroundings were quiet, especially Ling Yichen. He put on a "what the f*** CK expression and stood there in a daze, not even moving an inch. On the other hand, it was Lu Rongrong's first time witnessing Yun Jian's skills. She was dumbfounded on the spot. At this moment, she didn't even think about her own trick anymore. Her eyes only revealed shock and fear. "I'm so sorry, I accidentally hit all of them." Yun Jian smiled and looked at the crowd. She didn't feel that there was anything wrong with what she said. However, the crowd who had watched from the beginning to the end knew that Yun Jian's words were meant for Lu Rongrong and Ling Yichen. Even the thick-skinned Lu Rongrong and Ling Yichen couldn't help but smile at this. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Sini snickered at the side, especially Chen Sini. She even gave Yun Jian a thumbs up. Then, Chen Sini asked the shop owner for a big bunny doll. The shop owner's face was bitter, and his heart was filled with regret. However, in front of so many people, he didn't dare to go back on his word, and refused to give Chen Sini the big doll. If he went back on his word in front of everyone, who would dare to play his game of shooting balloons? Then how would he earn money? The shop owner's face drooped, and he slowly and unwillingly handed the big bunny doll to Chunsini. Chunsini held the big bunny doll happily. She even shook the big bunny doll at Ling Yichen and made a funny face. In the end, Lu Rongrong ran away with her tail between her legs. Before she left, she even flashed a wicked smile. Whenever she thought of the mysterious woman she met last night, who said that she would help her teach Yun Jian a lesson, she couldn't help but feel happy. Moreover, that mysterious woman said that as long as she lured Yun Jian to her place today, she would teach Yun Jian a lesson. Lu Rongrong couldn't help but snicker in her heart. Yun Jian, you're the one who provoked me. Lu Rongrong cursed inwardly for a while, and revealed an evil smile. She had already thought of a solution. Forest Park was a scenic spot located in a primeval forest. Later generations had only transformed the forest, but the scenery in the park was all from nature. Therefore, it gave people a pristine feeling, allowing people to breathe in waves of fresh air while standing in it. After the balloon shooting game, Yun Jian, Chunsini, and the others sat on a tranquil lawn in the park. The surrounding trees provided shade, and the branches and leaves of the trees acted as a shelter, so they were not afraid of being exposed to the scorching sun at noon. Not only did Ling Yichen not leave because of that incident, he even shamelessly followed Yun Jian and the rest. Yun Jian and the rest did not purposely stop him. They just treated him as if he did not exist. Chunsini sat for a while and opened countless bags of snacks. The snacks were dry in her mouth, and she even drank a lot of water in the morning, so she felt the urge to pee now. Jian, I'm going to the washroom. You stay here. You have to keep an eye on the rest of the snacks. We can't let the two dumb pigs, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, eat them no matter what. Chunsini declared her sovereignty over the snacks domineeringly with her hands on her hips, and turned to run to the washroom. Yun Jian could not help smiling with her lips pressed together. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were called out, had their lips twitched instead. It was only about 25 minutes later that Chunsini had yet to return from the washroom. Yun Jian could not help frowning. The washroom was not far from here. Even if Chunsini wanted to go to the washroom, she should not have taken so long. Cindy didn't fall into a trap, did she? Haha. Zhang Xiaofeng broke the silence with a chuckle, stuffing a mouthful of chips into his mouth. No. Yun Jian looked down and stood up abruptly to walk to the washroom. What's wrong? Zhang Xiaofeng stopped teasing as well, sensing the unusual atmosphere in Yun Jian. At this moment, a girl ran over from outside the lawn panting. She was a girl in her class who did not like to talk much, but she was running frantically. She ran to Yun Jian and the rest in fear and shouted timidly, Chunsini, she was. The girl could not catch her breath. She took 2 deep breaths and continued. She's been taken away by a group of cruel people. They look like gangsters. It's so scary. I met Chunsini in the washroom just now. We came out of the washroom together, and that group of people rushed up and took her away. Sob, sob, sob. Chapter 139. What? As soon as the girl said that, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were sitting on the lawn, jumped up. Although the two of them often bickered with Chunsini, they still treated Chunsini as their own sister at critical moments. Therefore, when they heard the girl say that Chunsini had been kidnapped by a group of unknown villains, their faces immediately turned green. Which direction did she go? In contrast, Yun Jian was much calmer as she asked the girl. The girl still hadn't recovered from her fear, but she still pointed in a direction. She was still in a state of sobbing. Yun Jian lifted her feet and walked in that direction. After a few steps, she began to run. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen couldn't care less about the pile of snacks on the lawn. They lifted their feet and chased after Yun Jian. However, even though the two of them ran with all their might, they still couldn't catch up to Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng was already used to this kind of thing, but Ling Yichen was different. Yun Jian's marksmanship had already left him speechless. Now, even her running was as fast as flying. Ling Yichen couldn't help but wonder if Yun Jian had been in the army. Otherwise, how could she have such marksmanship and speed? Yun Jian was faster than Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen when she reached the toilet, where Chunsini had been kidnapped. She looked around and narrowed her eyes. It was too late to chase after her now. Chen Xinyi must have been taken out of the forest park by now. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen ran to Yun Jian's side panting. Ling Yichen couldn't help but be surprised when he saw that Yun Jian was running so fast without panting. "Master, what should we do now?" Zhang Xiaofeng asked anxiously. After all, he was born into a rich family and had never encountered such a situation before. Naturally, he was anxious and scared. "Let's call the police," Ling Yichen suggested. "It's too late. By the time the police started their investigation, it would be too late." Yun Jian turned her head and said to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Compared to the two of them, she was fearless in the face of danger. Chen Xinyi was directly kidnapped. Yun Jian felt that this matter was not so simple. "Do you have a cell phone?" Yun Jian looked at Zhang Xiaofeng. She didn't bring her phone, mainly because it was inconvenient for her to go on a trip today. To put it simply, she was too lazy to bring it. Yes. Zhang Xiaofeng hurriedly took out a mobile phone from his pocket. He didn't ask what Yun Jian was going to do. He didn't know why he had such a feeling, as if as long as Yun Jian was here, this matter would be resolved safely. Yun Jian took the phone. Her nimble fingers pressed a few buttons on the phone and made a call. There were no touchscreen phones in this era, and Zhang Xiaofeng's phone was from the Nokia brand. Nokia was a brand that had become popular recently. Zhang Xiaofeng could keep up with the trend, which meant that his family was indeed rich. Beep, beep, beep. The call was picked up immediately. After the call was connected, there was no sound from the other side. Yun Jian's call was directly to the headquarters of the Kosha Mercenaries intelligence team. The Kosha Mercenaries intelligence team was distributed all over the world. Even if there were some changes in the local feng shui of various countries, the intelligence team would also collect information. Chen Xinyi had been kidnapped. Yun Jian would ask the intelligence team to investigate thoroughly and get the news as soon as possible. At the same time, the intelligence team of the Kosha mercenaries would not speak first when they answered the phone. To kill is to stop, to become a god. Yun Jian opened her mouth and uttered the code for intelligence, gathering with the intelligence team in fluent English. Chapter 140. After Yun Jian gave the code, the other end of the phone was silent for a few seconds. Then a low and strange female voice sounded. "What instructions do you have?" Yun Jian knew from the voice that this person was the head of the Kosha mercenaries intelligence team, Diani. Diani was the head of the Kosha mercenaries. The intelligence team that she led had always been accurate. Many international business tycoons had bought intelligence from Diani at high prices. The price had even risen to hundreds of millions of US dollars. All for the sake of obtaining accurate information. The intelligence team took up a significant portion of the Kosha mercenaries' financial income. This could not be helped without the guidance of the intelligence team's head, Diani. "Help me investigate a person." Yun Jian relayed her location and the process of the incident in English. Soon, Diani found the information and reported it to her. Actually, as soon as Yun Jian said the code, Diani already knew that Yun Jian was her superior. However, the intelligence team had always been tight-lipped and never asked about such things. They only knew how to search for information and then report it to the other party. Until Yun Jian hung up and handed the phone back to Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were still in a daze. They did not understand what Yun Jian said at all. They only knew that she called a foreigner and that the two of them were talking in English. However, at this critical moment, why did she call a foreigner? Yun Jian was already walking forward. The two of them hurriedly followed her footsteps. Yun Jian's lips curled slightly. She reached out and tucked the loose strands of hair behind her ear. She said, "They kidnapped Xinyi in a car. The car plate number is Dragon A 50855. "How did you know the car plate number?" Ling Yichen exclaimed. Yun Jian had only made a phone call. How could she have found out the other party's car plate number? This was illogical. The two of them were shocked and terrified. Yun Jian only smiled faintly. The members of the Kosha mercenaries intelligence team were scattered all over the world. The number of members was uncountable. In other words, there is a high possibility that someone you know is a member of the Kosha mercenaries intelligence organization, hiding in the city or between the cities. His job was to constantly search for changing information. What's more, the intelligence team didn't just rely on manpower to gather information. They could use any electronic products. And they could even use mobile phones to enter a wide range of systems in the shortest amount of time. However, after excluding the ordinary vehicles in the area, the final result was obtained. Now that we only know the license plate number, how are we going to find Cindy? Zhang Xiaofeng asked the key question. Yun Jian, on the other hand, narrowed her eyes and turned her head to the side. The girl's delicate eyebrows twitched as she coldly said, "Based on the license plate number, do you think we can't find the other party's address?" Based on the license plate number, ordinary people would not be able to find the owner's home address. However, the public security organs of some departments could search for it. But don't forget that there is another type of person who can hackers. Yun Jian was a hacker herself. She was proficient in computer programming, assassination, and explosives. However, this time, Yun Jian didn't need to check the license plate number and the owner's home address. Diane had already told her. However, Yun Jian didn't explain this to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Now wasn't the right time to do so. Then where is Cindy now? Zhang Xiaofeng only wanted to know this now. Yun Jian took a step forward with her long, slender legs. Then she paused and said, "The Premium Casino." Chapter 141. The finest casino was a casino in itself, where all the gamblers gathered together. The casino itself belonged to the second largest mafia group in Longmen City, the Nine Valleys Gang. There were two major mafia groups in Longmen City. The first was Dragon Head Gang, while the second was the Nine Valleys Gang. Su Zetian's Dragon Head Gang had tens of thousands of brothers and owned all the bars and night markets in Longmen City. Su Zetian was also a member of the Kosha mercenaries, so his position as a mafia boss was secure. However, the second largest mafia group in Longmen City, the Nine Valleys Gang, was not to be underestimated. Other than Dragon Head Gang, the Nine Valleys Gang was the second largest mafia group. Even if they did not have tens of thousands of brothers, they were close to this number. Moreover, he had divided many regions. Even Longmen City's top casino, the famous Prime Casino, belonged to the Nine Valleys Gang. As the saying goes, a mountain cannot accommodate two tigers. As the underworld boss, Su Zetian naturally wanted to eliminate the Nine Valleys Gang, the only big gang that could threaten him. In spite of this, he did not have the strength to do so. The Kosha mercenaries could send someone to help him win a match, but they would not go to such lengths to eliminate the Nine Valleys Gang that was a threat to him, a mere mafia boss of Longmen City. It was unrealistic. In addition, the Nine Valleys Gang's influence was not weak, especially in recent years when they had gained more power. Su Zetian could no longer eliminate them with his Dragon Head Gang's influence alone, so he could only let them continue to develop. Yun Jian and the other two did not have time to inform their homeroom teacher, as they left the forest park and hailed a taxi to the Prime Casino. To be honest, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were still rather fearful of places like the Prime Casino. The term mafia was enough to send chills down one's spine. Nine Valleys Gang, the entrance of the Prime Casino. The taxi driver parked his car far away and drove off immediately after Yun Jian paid the fare. He could not be blamed for this. For places like the Prime Casino that belonged to mafia groups, it was common for some gamblers to be chopped off and stomped on the spot when they lost and could not afford to pay. Standing at the entrance of the casino, Yun Jian had her hands in her pockets. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen stood diagonally behind her. She tilted her head and looked at the two trembling youths. "Don't go in if you're afraid." She could easily handle the entire casino on her own. But with Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, she could not guarantee that no accidents would happen. "No, Master, I want to go in," Zhang Xiaofeng said in a firm tone. Hearing Zhang Xiaofeng's words, Yun Jian smiled wickedly and turned to look at Ling Yichen. After being stared at for a while, Ling Yichen finally said resolutely, "I'll go in too." "All right." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng. She smiled wickedly at him and said arrogantly, "You can keep a low profile when you do things, but today, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Since you've stepped into my circle, you have to remember this. If someone bullies you, even if it's the emperor, you won't tolerate it. No matter what the Nine Valleys gang's motive was, or why they kidnapped Chin Sini, Yun Jian would never keep a low profile when dealing with such an enemy. Because if you cower today, there won't be a place for you in this world anymore." Yun Jian continued to narrate. Just like in her previous life, if she was not strong, if she kept a low profile and did not show her strength, even if others bullied her, she would have died a long time ago. Survival of the fittest, elimination of the weak. And she, Yun Jian, was never a weakling. Zhang Xiaofeng listened to Yun Jian's words in a daze. He did not fully understand. It was only when Yun Jian walked towards the casino that the two of them followed closely behind. There were two people who looked like bodyguards standing at the entrance of the casino. When they saw Yun Jian, a little girl, walking towards them, they quickly waved their hands and gestured for her to go away. "Go, go, go. Little brat, where are you going? This is not a place you should be." One of them pointed to the side and shouted at Yun Jian, and the rest impatiently. Yun Jian walked up and kicked him. The person was sent flying into the casino. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen did not expect Yun Jian to be so fierce. The two of them were stunned as they recalled the meaning behind Yun Jian's words to Zhang Xiaofeng. The girl had already stepped into the entrance of the casino. She stood at the entrance and stepped on the chest of the bodyguard who had been kicked away. She said loudly, "Get the boss of your Nine Valleys gang to come out and see me." Chapter 142. The Nine Valleys gang was Longmen City's second mafia group after all, and its influence in Longmen City was immense. Yun Jian's roar was a humiliation to the Nine Valleys gang members. Soon, a group of brawny men with metal rods dashed out from the inner room and surrounded the trio led by Yun Jian. A man with dyed yellow hair walked out from the group, with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. He studied Yun Jian and spat the cigarette on the floor. The man with dyed yellow hair turned his menacing face to look at Yun Jian from the corner of his eye and spoke arrogantly. "Yo, little girl, you want to see our boss? Isn't your tone a little too presumptuous? Aren't you afraid that we'll do something to you?" The blond man's voice was sinister when he spoke. His eyes were still on Yun Jian when he spoke the last sentence, looking like a ruffian who wanted more. "Brother Huang, why are you talking to her? How dare this brat call our boss by his name and ask him to come out? Pfft, let's teach her a lesson first. Let these three brats know that our boss's name isn't to be insulted by anyone." A lackey standing beside the blond man shouted at him and waved the metal rod in his hand, as if boasting about his prowess. "Ha!" Yun Jian scoffed in response. At the same time, Yun Jian took a step forward. Her cold, hawk-like eyes stared at the group before her as she smirked. "Do you think you're qualified to teach me a lesson?" After that, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were standing not far behind Yun Jian, saw Yun Jian stretch out her hands. A few stones the size of diamonds appeared between her fair and clean fingers. She waved her hands and hurled the stones out. These stones were like several sharp swords, and with frightening speed and accuracy, they smashed towards the group of strong men holding iron rods. Plop plop. An orderly sound rang out. The 6 to 7 brawny men who were holding metal rods were hit in the knees by pebbles, and all of them knelt down toward Yun Jian, in the order they were spread out around them. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were completely dumbfounded. Both of them thought that Yun Jian's ability had been unleashed to its fullest when she was shooting. What was going on here though? Throwing stones at the same time, and hitting a few brawny men in one move. It was impossible to execute such a move without extremely precise technique. They had only seen such a scene in a movie, where an assassin killed someone. Yun Jian knew how to kill people? Both of them were dumbfounded. "Let's go." Yun Jian turned her head to instruct Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Then, she stepped over the group of brawny men who were kneeling on the ground, and had no idea what had just happened. She had picked up these stones from the lawn in the park. She did not expect them to come in handy. Although they were not as handy as hidden weapons, they were not too shabby either. No matter how suspicious Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were, they would never think that Yun Jian was an assassin or a secret agent. They did not dare to continue standing in the same spot. So while the yellow-haired man and the others were stunned, they followed Yun Jian's footsteps. They stepped over the screen at the entrance and walked straight to the center of the casino. In the center of the casino, wave after wave of gamblers sat together, making a racket. Big, big, I'll bet on big. Small, 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 this round will definitely be small. The gamblers were having a good time. Their tireless voices echoed throughout the casino. At this moment, Yun Jian led Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen around the lively casino and walked straight to the back door. Chapter 143. Yun Jian, Ling Yichen, and Ling Yichen passed through the center of the smoky casino and entered through the back door. Everyone in the casino was busy gambling to further enhance the atmosphere of the place. No one had the time to care about Yun Jian, Ling Yichen and Ling Yichen's actions. Passing through the back door, the ruckus in the front hall abruptly subsided. Follow me closely from now on. No matter what happens, don't leave my sight. Yun Jian turned to instruct Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen who were behind her. Okay. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen nodded. Both of them did not know what Yun Jian meant, but after witnessing Yun Jian's skills and tactics, they chose to believe her unconditionally. They then passed through a dark corridor without lights. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen held their breaths, not daring to even breathe loudly. They had never thought that they would be able to barge into the mafia's territory one day. To them, the mafia was the most terrifying place in existence. The girl who led them forward, however, did not show the slightest hint of fear. We're here. Yun Jian smirked with a squint. As she spoke, she glanced sideways at a room with warm lighting in front of them. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's breaths paused, but they did not say a word as if they had made a pact. Yun Jian, on the other hand, walked forward casually. The room with the orange light from the door was the office of Longmen City's second mafia boss, Yuan Xuxiao. The corridor was dark, and there were no windows. Therefore, one could clearly see the warm light coming from the room. From this, Yun Jian was certain that the person was inside. In contrast to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's cautiousness, Yun Jian went straight ahead, unafraid of making a commotion. She went to the door and kicked it open. If she was uncertain before, she was now certain that she was the reason Chen Sini was taken away. Their target was her. Perhaps it was the experience of her younger brother being taken away and killed in her past life that made Yun Jian loathe those who took away the people she cared about. She hated being threatened. She hated people who used the people she cared about to threaten her. Clang! Yun Jian's kick was so forceful that it broke the door lock. It was a testament to her strength. At the same time, not only Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen shuddered, the people inside the room felt their eyelids twitching. There were 3 people standing in the room. The middle-aged man in a suit standing in the middle of the trio was the Nine Valleys Gang's boss, Yuan Xuxiao. When Yuan Xuxiao heard the door's broken door lock, he shuddered in goosebumps all over his body. The other 2 men standing next to Yuan Xuxiao did not look any better. Just when the 3 people in the room were staring at the young girl, who had broken through the door, they saw the young girl raise her foot and walk into the room. She used her sharp and deep eyes to look at Yuan Xuxiao. She called out Yuan Xuxiao's full name directly, her tone scornful and arrogant. Yuan Xuxiao, are you declaring war against the kosher mercenaries by taking my people away? The girl's tone was frivolous, but her words made Yuan Xuxiao and the other 3 men gasp. Chapter 144. Kosher Mercenaries was a team formed by the world's top mercenaries. It was the vanguard among the assassin organizations. Other than an Hun group, Kosher Mercenaries could be said to be invincible in the world. Whenever Yuan Xuxiao mentioned such an organization to his brothers in the past, he would be shocked by it. Yun Jian slammed the door and walked in, humiliating Yuan Xuxiao and his men. Just as they were about to lash out at the young and frivolous girl, they did not expect her to boast shamelessly that she was a member of Kosher Mercenaries. Yuan Shixiao understood that if an ordinary person spouted nonsense in the name of kosher mercenaries, the kosher mercenaries would seek revenge from them. Since Yun Jian dared to say it, she must be a member of kosher mercenaries, unless she had a death wish. Kosher mercenaries had spies all over the world, and could even find out about trivial matters. If Yun Jian was just a member of kosher mercenaries like Su Zetian, Yuan Shixiao would not have to be so frightened and shocked. Kosher mercenaries had members all over the world. There were plenty of people like Su Zetian, who occupied a position in Longmen City, but had no status in kosher mercenaries. In spite of it, Yuan Shixiao grasped Yun Jian's words tightly. She had actually said something like, "Do you want to start a war with us kosher mercenaries?" It could be said that her position in kosher mercenaries was extraordinary. She could even summon kosher mercenaries to start a war with him. Otherwise, a mere member of kosher mercenaries would not dare to use such an arrogant tone and claim to be a member of kosher mercenaries. Therefore, Yuan Su Xiao, the woman standing next to him, and his confidant standing next to him were all stunned. They were dumbfounded. The girl before them who looked underage was actually a high-ranking member of kosher mercenaries? The news was too shocking. Of course, Yuan Shixiao and his men did not know how they would react if they knew that Yun Jian was the boss of kosher mercenaries. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who followed Yun Jian, and were dumbfounded as well. Kosher mercenaries? How could they not know? It was an internationally renowned mercenary organization. In spite of it, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen knew that Yun Jian was just an ordinary third-year middle school girl. Thinking about it, both of them frowned and decided to wait and see what would happen. Did I take your men away? My young friend, you can't simply say that. I'm a man of the underworld, but I've never done anything outrageous. Yuan Shixiao's attitude toward Yun Jian was very amiable. At least from Yuan Shixiao's point of view, it did not matter if Yun Jian was really a high-ranking member of kosher mercenaries. But he would rather assume that she was a high-ranking member than take the risk of angering kosher mercenaries. Yun Jian scoffed and went straight to Yuan Shixiao's desk from the door. Lifting her hand, she tapped lightly on the surface of the desk with her finger. "You didn't." Yun Jian scoffed and crossed her legs to sit on the desk. Crossing her left leg over her right leg, she crossed her legs lazily and looked at Yuan Shixiao. "The license plate is Dragon A? 50855 Yuan Shixiao. Do you dare say that your Nine Valleys gang did not take my men away?" Yuan Shixiao was stunned. The license plate was indeed his Nine Valleys gang's car, but he did not send anyone to take her away. At this moment, the woman standing beside Yuan Shixiao trembled when she heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian saw the woman's action. Yun Jian suddenly smirked and jumped down from the desk. She walked to the woman in a few steps. Chapter 145. Looking at the dagger that appeared out of nowhere in Yun Jian's hand, the group was stunned. Yuan Shixiao, in particular, shuddered and wanted to push Yun Jian away, but he stopped himself and told Yun Jian in a trembling voice, "Oh, young friend, this must be a misunderstanding. Xiaoyu is my sister. She just came back from studying in country Y. How could she have a grudge against you or your people? It's even more impossible for her to take your people away. Can you put the dagger down first?" The woman was none other than Yuan Shixiao's biological sister, Yuan Xiaoyu. As the boss of Longmen City's second mafia group, Yuan Shixiao's position in Longmen City was second only to Su Zetian. He was also a big shot, but he had never shown weakness to anyone like today. Yun Jian was the first. In spite of it, Yuan Shixiao had a feeling that if he angered Yun Jian, the dagger in her hand would really slit his sister's neck brutally. Yuan Shixiao was known for his decisiveness in killing, but his only weakness was his sister, Yuan Xiaoyu. He lost his father when he was young and his mother remarried, leaving him and his sister behind. They were homeless back then, and his sister was his only family. Therefore, when Yuan Shixiao saw Yun Jian's dagger pressed against Yuan Xiaoyu's neck, he shuddered and his heart almost leaped out of his chest. Yuan Xiaoyu herself did not expect Yun Jian to threaten her with a dagger. She was so frightened that her legs turned to jelly, and she was paralyzed, but not paralyzed. Are you going to tell me or not? Yun Jian did not listen to Yuan Shuxiao, but asked Yuan Xiaoyu further, while the dagger in her hand pressed closer to Yuan Xiaoyu's skin. Yuan Xiaoyu could even feel the coldness of her pores, and the dagger's handle getting closer. She shuddered and could not help screaming. No, no, no. Don't kill me. Sob. Don't kill me. It's not me, it's not me. I didn't do it on purpose. Sob. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen thought that Yun Jian had made a mistake too, but their eyes were now on Yun Jian, and the seemingly harmless woman, Yuan Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu, what did you say? Yuan Shuxiao did not expect that his sister would actually admit it. In his impression, his sister had always been well-behaved and obedient. He did not expect that she would really kidnap Yun Jian's people. He looked at her in disbelief. Yuan Xiaoyu pursed her lips nervously. Her body trembled, and she suddenly cried out loudly. However, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and curled her lips. She put down the dagger, crossed her arms and looked at Yun Jian, who was squatting on the ground. She said coldly, "The person you are looking for should be me, Yun Jian, right?" Hearing the two words Yun Jian, Yuan Xiaoyu, who was squatting on the ground, raised her head. Her face was slightly pale as she nodded shakily. Under Yuan Shuxiao's mediation, Yuan Xiaoyu finally told the truth unwillingly. Indeed, Yuan Xiaoyu did not have a grudge against Yun Jian. The one who had a grudge against Yun Jian was Shiniji, who had lost to Yun Jian in the arena not long ago, and had his hands crippled by Yun Jian. Shiniji was a contestant in Country-Wise National Challenge Tournament. His future was ruined after his hands were crippled, and he was filled with anger. Coincidentally, Shiniji's sister and Yuan Xiaoyu were roommates in Country-Wise Gaoya University, and they were good friends. In short, Yuan Xiaoyu used her brother Yuan Shuxiao's underworld power to help Shiniji's sister find Yun Jian and help her take revenge on Yun Jian. Yun Jian was not easy to deal with. Yuan Xiaoyu knew this from the beginning, so she used Lu Rongrong, who was not on good terms with Yun Jian's classmate, to tell Lu Rongrong that she could help her teach Yun Jian a lesson, as long as she could trick Yun Jian into coming out. However, later in the forest park, Lu Rongrong did not have the chance to trick Yun Jian out alone. Coincidentally, she bumped into Chen Xini, who was best friends with Yun Jian, going to the toilet. Therefore, Lu Rongrong asked Yuan Xiaoyu's people to take Chen Xini away first. She also claimed that as long as she used Chen Xini to threaten Yun Jian, she would not be afraid of Yun Jian being arrogant again. Lu Rongrong. Yun Jian smiled contemptuously. Her lips curled into a murderous smile. Although she was smiling, the temperature in the room dropped by a few degrees. Chapter 146. Everyone shuddered from the bottom of their hearts when they heard Yun Jian's menacing words floating toward them, especially Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. They never thought that Lu Rongrong was one of the masterminds behind Chen Xini's kidnapping. Where is she? When everyone came back to their senses, Yun Jian's voice had returned to normal. She asked Yuan Xiaoyu calmly, but there was a chilling coldness in her voice. She was, of course, referring to Chen Xini. Yuan Xiaoyu did not dare to hide anything. She knew that this matter was serious, because Yun Jian was the one who made her brother, whom she had always admired, feel uneasy. Yuan Xiaoyu immediately gave him an address. She raised her head and looked at Yuan Shuxiao while trembling. She pursed her lips and said, "Originally, they wanted to kidnap the little girl first, and then send someone to deliver a letter to you. They wanted you to go to the place they told you to go alone, and then capture you directly." Before Yuan Xiaoyu could finish, Yun Jian turned and left. She did not want to hear this nonsense. When she left, she gestured to Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. They immediately followed her. "You stay here and don't go anywhere. I'll deal with you when I come back." Yuan Shuxiao pointed at Yuan Xiaoyu's head and walked out. He was a smart man. He knew that his sister had made such a serious mistake. If he did not make up for it, Yun Jian, who was one of the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries, would not let her go. Therefore, he wanted to do something while he could still make up for it. After all, anyone who offended the kosher mercenaries was one step closer to death. The four of them walked out of the back door, and came to the center of the casino. Just now, the gamblers in the casino were shouting even louder. It could be said that there was another wave after another. The four of them, led by Yun Jian, had just walked to the center of the casino. They wanted to leave quietly, but unexpectedly, they heard a heart-wrenching voice begging for mercy. Please, please don't cut my hand. Don't cut it. I'll go home to get the money. It was a hoarse male voice, and there was a sense of despair and regret in it. There were plenty of people who lost money in the casino and could not pay it back, resulting in their limbs being chopped off. This was especially true in the Prime Casino, known as the top casino in Longmen City. It was as simple as eating a meal. Yun Jian walked past the place directly, but it was Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen who looked horrified. No, don't cut it off, I beg you, please. Yun Jian? Daughter? My daughter, she's my daughter. It was then that the pleading voice went straight to Yun Jian, as if it had suddenly seen some hope. When Yun Jian first heard the voice, she found it familiar, but she did not pay it much attention. When the voice called her in front of everyone, however, Yun Jian snapped back to reality. She looked up and saw a sloppy middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s, with a beard on his chin that had not been shaved for a long time running toward her. Yun Jian was stunned, but she managed to get a clear look at the man's face. Although he was more unkempt compared to the father in the original owner's memory, it was not hard to tell that this was the person she had never seen since her rebirth, and had left her family with so much trouble. The father of her current body, Yun Gang. When Yun Gang saw Yun Jian, he could not care less about why his daughter was here. He ran behind Yun Jian and stuck his head out to look at the person who had just won against him, but wanted to chop off his hand because he could not pay back the money he had lost. He shuddered slightly. Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Yuan Xuxiao were surprised that the middle-aged man would simply recognize his father. However, when they saw that Yun Jian did not push the man away, but remained silent and aloof, they were shocked. This sloppy and cowardly man who looked like a slug was really Yun Jian's father? How was this possible? Yun Jian's domineering aura even made Yuan Xuxiao wonder who could have given birth to such an amazing daughter. Chapter 147. Jian. Xiao Jian, save me. Save daddy, save daddy. Yun Gang hid behind Yun Jian and tugged at the corner of Yun Jian's shirt as he watched the man who was approaching him. This man was the one who had just won the bet and wanted to chop off Yun Gang's hands because he could not pay up. This man was one of Yuan Suzhao's subordinates. His name was Yi Feng, and he was the manager of the casino. Yun Gang had come here with the intention of gambling today. If he won, he would have the money to pay off his debt. Who knew that he would lose so badly and almost lose both his hands? At that moment, Yun Gang had no idea what had happened to his family. Ever since he ran away with the debt, he had not returned to Xinjiang town. When Yi Feng saw Yun Gang running behind Yun Jian, he was making his way over with the intention of putting an end to this matter. In spite of it, Yi Feng saw his boss, Yuan Xuxiao, standing behind Yun Jian and waving at him, signaling him to let it go. Hence, he did not come over again. Let go. Yun Jian's frivolous voice rang again, causing everyone's hearts to skip a beat. Yun Jian was speaking to Yun Gang. It was because Yun Gang was tugging at the hem of Yun Jian's shirt out of fear. Xiao Jian, daddy's wrong, daddy's wrong, daddy's wrong, please save daddy. Yun Gang thought that Yun Jian was angry and did not realize that Yi Feng had backed off. Instead, he tugged at Yun Jian's shirt even more fearfully as he begged for help in a trembling voice. I'll say it again. Let go or I'll cripple your hands for you. Yun Jian did not like Yun Gang at all. She did not expect to run into Yun Gang in a place like this. Previously, Yun Gang had left so many troublesome chores for the family. She could ignore it, but she didn't expect that this person named father would be so stubborn as to continue gambling in the casino. If she had not persuaded Qin Yiru to leave Yun Gang, what would have happened? It was estimated that Qin Yiru would be cheated by Yun Gang until not even a bone would be left. Yun Gang had never thought that his weak and timid daughter would speak to him in such a tone. He was frightened on the spot, and his hand unconsciously loosened. Everyone sucked in a deep breath when they saw this. Let's go. Yun Jian said a few words to the people behind her, but her eyes glanced sideways at Yun Gang and threatened. If you dare to follow me, not only will I cripple your hands, I will also chop off your feet. Also, you're not allowed to disturb my mother and brother in the future. Go back to your hometown. I've already paid off your debt. This is the last time. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Yun Jian's words were a disguised reminder to Yuan Shuxiao's men to let Yun Gang go. Of course, she also expressed her attitude. This was the last time she would clean up the mess for the original owner's father. In the future, this man's life and death would have nothing to do with her. Yun Gang was dumbfounded. He rolled his eyes and stared blankly at Yun Jian being escorted out by Yuan Shuxiao and the others. He had an illusion that his daughter was not a fish in a pond. After leaving the casino, Yuan Shuxiao took out his jeep for Yun Jian. They got in the jeep. Yun Jian did not want to be in the limelight and let Yuan Shuxiao drive her to the place that Yuan Xiaoyu told her to. It was a remote area in the wilderness. There was only a row of temporary factory buildings built here. In the warehouse behind the factory building, Shiniji, whose hands were crippled, stood there fiercely with a seductive woman beside him. Have you caught Yun Jian yet? Shiniji exhaled fiercely. Not yet, but soon. The seductive woman sighed. Chapter 148. Okay, brother. The seductive woman standing beside Shiniji nodded and smiled viciously. This seductive foreign woman was Shiniji's sister, Shiniji. Shiniji looked down, and a sharp glint flashed across her eyes. She said to Shiniji in a low voice, "The assassin we hired this time is one of the top 10 assassins on the assassin ranking, Wolfblade, who is also known as the Grim Killer. Hehe, unless Yun Jian is on the assassin or secret agent ranking, she can't possibly leave this place alive. Hehe, dream on." Hehe. Shiniji laughed out loud when he heard that. It was as if he could see Yun Jian descending into hell and taking his revenge. A jeep drove in through the rows of factories. Finally, the jeep stopped at the entrance of the factories. Yun Jian and the rest got out of the car one by one. This is the place Xiaoyu mentioned. Yuan Shuxiao was the last to get out of the car. He closed the car door and took a few steps forward. He looked around and said, "There are so many factories here. How are we going to find her?" Zhang Xiaofeng seemed to be in a hurry. Ever since Chen Sini was taken away, every minute and every second had been very difficult for him. Although Zhang Xiaofeng liked to bicker with Chen Sini on a daily basis, Chen Sini was his only sister among the younger generation. Although they were cousins, they had grown up together and were very close to each other. As her brother, he naturally did not want anything to happen to his sister. "Oh right, Xiaofeng, I've already informed the police. I believe they will come here soon to rescue her. I didn't inform uncle and auntie, because I'm afraid they will be worried if they know that something happened to Sini." Ling Yichen waved his phone and sent a text message. "Thank you." Zhang Xiaofeng saw that Ling Yichen was considerate and thanked him. "Let's go." Yun Jian took 2 steps forward and suddenly stopped. She turned her head to look at Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. "Are you two going to continue? Shiniji has a grudge against me, and he's a foreigner from country Y. You've met Zhang Xiaofeng before, and he's someone who can get a pistol. If you guys continue to follow me and something happens, what will you do?" Zhang Xiaofeng was her personal disciple, her first disciple. If he followed her, he would definitely experience such dangerous things. However, Zhang Xiaofeng still did not have the ability to protect himself because he had just received training. Yun Jian never liked people making unnecessary sacrifices. Moreover, this was her own business. "No, master. I will definitely go because Sini is my younger sister. She is in danger now. And as her brother, how can I run away at such a dangerous time?" Zhang Xiaofeng firmly expressed his inner thoughts. "Me too, let's go together." Ling Yichen did not look like a playboy at the moment. Instead, he looked more like a proper man. Yun Jian smiled with her eyes crinkled. Her disciple should have such spirit. "Let's go then." Yun Jian strode forward. Yuan Shuxiao and the rest were stunned. "There are so many factories here. Do Do you know where the person is? Aren't you afraid of alerting the enemy? Yuan Shuxiao was indeed the boss of Longmen City's second mafia group. He had the ability to judge and ask Yun Jian. Yes. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and suddenly pointed at the ground. The factory floor in this era was not made of cement, but made of sand and rocks. On the sand and rocks, there was a particularly obvious tire print. They were still pondering Yun Jian's meaning with a frown when Yun Jian explained, "Just follow the tire print left by the car." Yuan Shuxiao was dumbfounded. She had observed it so carefully. Yuan Shuxiao asked again in confusion, "How did you determine that this tire print was driven by the car that took your friend away? What if it was another car?" Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were equally puzzled by this question. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and turned to look at them, pointing a finger as she explained. "First, this tire print was crushed not too long ago. Second, the tire print of your Jeep Dragonet 50855 looks like this." She could actually tell that the tire print was left by a car not too long ago. Her knowledge and insight were actually so precise. Chapter 149. After that, Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two did not question her anymore. To be honest, whether it was Yun Jian's previous judgment or her skills and methods, they did not seem like something a teenage girl should have. The only thing they were certain of was that her assertions were never wrong. Based on this alone, the three of them trusted her unconditionally. "Trust me and follow me," Yun Jian said with a slight quirk of her brow while the three of them thought about it. All three of them nodded in unison. With Yun Jian leading the way, they followed the deepest tire tracks on the sand until they came to the door of a factory in the corner. In the warehouse behind the factory, Shiniji, and the cold-faced assassin they hired, Wolfblade, were already standing there. Not far away, Chinsini, who had her mouth covered with black tape, was tied to a bench, trying to make a sound. There was a group of people standing beside Shiniji, who were probably their subordinates. "Why isn't that brat here yet? Didn't you say you've sent someone to inform her?" Shiniji shot his younger sister, Shiniji, a vicious glare from the corner of his eyes. He had no idea that Yun Jian had already come before she received the notice. "Brother, is she going to leave her alone? After all, is it worth it to die for a friend?" Shiniji pointed at Chinsini, who was tied up with a frown. Chinsini widened her eyes before she shook her head abruptly. She had been listening to the duo's conversation and had seen Shiniji in the ring the last time. She already knew that they had captured her to lure Yun Jian. She knew that Jian Jian would come, but she was afraid that something would happen to the friend she had spent so much effort to make. "Boss, since that brat isn't here, why don't you let us have some fun first?" A few foreigners who stood beside Shiniji rubbed their hands together as they looked at Chinsini's pretty face. A few of them even pulled up their pants. It was needless to say how wretched they were. "Go, go, go. As long as you don't make any noise, it's fine." Shiniji wanted to take revenge on Yun Jian, so he hated Yun Jian. Naturally, he wasn't satisfied with Yun Jian's friend, Chinsini. When the men heard Shiniji's words, they rubbed their hands and walked toward Chinsini with lewd smiles. Chinsini's beautiful eyes suddenly widened, because these foreigners were all speaking Chinese, and she could understand them all the way. At this moment she shook her head vigorously. This was the first time she had felt such despair and fear. She even wanted to end her life at this moment. However, before these men could get close to Chinsini, the door was kicked open with a bang. The sturdy door was kicked open, and Yun Jian's slender and beautiful body was the first to step in. Her long and narrow eyes scanned the entire place sharply, and she said without restraint, "You dare to touch my people, Shiniji, you're dead meat." She had let Shiniji go in the arena last time out of respect for Su Zetian. However, Shiniji was still being stubborn today, so he couldn't blame her for being merciless. Kikik. Shiniji was slightly taken aback when he saw Yun Jian slam the door open, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He wasn't afraid of Yun Jian at all. "Mr. Wolfblade, please kill her." Shiniji turned his head to look at Wolfblade, and spoke in an extremely respectful tone. Only then did everyone turn their gazes toward this man, who was as thin as a skeleton. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, and looked directly at this man. Wolf Blade, ranked 10th on the assassin rankings, was a cold-faced assassin. This person had a wild wolf-like nature. Although he was extremely thin and weak, he was an expert in assassination. In a one-on-one battle, even the assassin ranked higher than him might not be able to defeat him. Shiniji, the person you want me to kill is only this little girl? You're underestimating me too much. I, Wolfblade, am one of the top 10 elites in the world of assassins, and you want me to fight a little girl? Wolfblade looked at Yun Jian with disdain as he spoke to Shiniji. Assassin. Shiniji had actually hired an assassin to deal with Yun Jian. Hearing Wolfblade's words, Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Yuan Shixiao's faces turned pale. Chapter 150. The reason why Zhang Xiaofeng and the others turned pale wasn't just because Wolfblade was an assassin. If Wolfblade was just a normal assassin without formal training, then they wouldn't be so afraid. After all, Yun Jian's strength wasn't just for show. She was able to defeat Shiniji in one move, and even take away his gun and cripple his hands. It was obvious that Yun Jian wasn't a normal person. However, Wolfblade claimed to be in the top 10 of the assassin ranking. To be able to squeeze into the top 10 of the assassin ranking or secret agent ranking, which one of them wasn't an elite that had survived a rain of bullets? It could be said that no matter who it was, as long as they showed up, even if they just stomped their feet, it was enough to cause a storm. Shiniji had actually hired Wolfblade, who was ranked 10th on the assassin ranking. Moreover, his goal was only to take revenge on Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others looked worriedly at Yun Jian. They immediately frowned with worry and fear. However, when Yun Jian heard Wolfblade's claim, her face didn't show any signs of shock. On the contrary, she was very calm. Then, she raised her eyebrows and pointed a slender finger at Wolfblade. She said frivolously, "You're not worthy of fighting with me. Killing you will only dirty my hands." Yun Jian's words sounded like she didn't care about her life. A little girl like her actually dared to provoke the internationally famous cold-faced assassin, Wolfblade. TSK, you little girl, you're really interesting. You're so young, but you've got guts. However, it's a pity that you're someone that my employer wants to kill. Therefore, you must die today. Wolfblade sized up Yun Jian again. He clicked his tongue and spoke with a sinister tone. The way he looked at Yun Jian was like he was looking at a dead person. If Wolfblade had looked down on Yun Jian before, then now he had to reevaluate this girl. Wolfblade could smell the scent of an assassin from Yun Jian's aura, but he didn't pay it any mind. After all, it wasn't easy to find an assassin or secret agent who was better than him in the world. Moreover, this girl in front of him was only 15 or 16 years old. You guys go away. Yun Jian waved her hand at Zhang Xiaofeng and the others behind her. She was currently emitting an imposing aura that forced them to submit. At this moment, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others didn't say anything and obediently retreated. In their hearts, they already placed Yun Jian's orders first. Tisk, interesting. Wolfblade smirked abruptly and said something chilling in an extremely ordinary tone as he walked toward Yun Jian. Before anyone could react, Wolfblade extended his arm and sprinted toward Yun Jian. His fingernails were pointed downward as he attacked Yun Jian viciously. His bony fingernails were 5 centimeters long, making him look like a devil from hell. The people present couldn't help but shiver. He would attack if he wanted to. As an assassin, he could laugh at you 1 second and stab you in the stomach the next. They would even do anything to complete their mission, even their lives. Therefore, their existence made countless businessmen, politicians, and international tycoons tremble in fear. Those 5-centimeter-long fingernails seemed like they would stab Yun Jian's heart in the next second. Everyone's expression changed greatly. Yun Jian, the main character, didn't move. She didn't move. Instead, she began to speak. Wolfblade joined an Hun group at the age of 3. At 8, he stole a knife and killed someone. At 14, he started his first mission. At 18, he assassinated the chief of Sea Country and became famous. With this kind of experience, what qualifications do you have to fight me? With every word Yun Jian said, Wolfblade froze. This girl knew his identity so well. At the same time, everyone present looked at Yun Jian in shock. Chapter 151. Wolf Blade was stunned. How did Yun Jian find out that he was an assassin from the Inhun organization? It should be known that any assassin or special agent on the assassin or special agent ranking would have all their secrets sealed off. As long as they were in the top 10, ordinary people could forget about knowing their qualifications. Even if they wanted to know their gender, it was a very difficult thing to do. That was why Wolf Blade was so shocked. Even if Wolf Blade was one of the top 10 assassins on the leaderboard, it was impossible for him to know the qualifications of the other assassins on the leaderboard. Before this, Wolf Blade admitted that he had never met Yun Jian, let alone that Yun Jian had the time to check his qualifications. Wolf Blade's pupils suddenly shrank. His eyes widened as he stared at the beautiful girl with her hair tied up in a high ponytail. He then shook his head. He knew that there were two people in the world who could easily find out the top 10 assassins and secret agents' secrets. There was no one else. One of them was the leader of the Inhun organization. The leader of the Inhun organization was the leader of the organization he belonged to. Naturally, he would not spread this information. As for the other person, she was the top secret agent on the secret agent leaderboard, known as the strongest secret agent in history. She was the king of secret agents with invincible hacking skills, Slaying God. Slaying God was an existence that struck fear into the hearts of those in the underworld. She was a legend. However, there was no way Wolf Blade would believe that the young girl before him was Slaying God. Although he did not know Slaying God's age and gender, he did not think that the master of the Tang Tang secret agent world would appear in such a destitute place. Was that not a joke? With that in mind, Wolf Blade looked at Yun Jian confidently and cackled, no longer holding back. I don't care where you got my qualifications from. Since you know my secrets, you'll have to die today. As he spoke, Wolf Blade put his fingernails together and leaped toward Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest held their breaths. They wanted to scream out loud. Could Yun Jian really withstand an attack from an international assassin? The answer was of course yes. Yun Jian smirked. She turned sideways to face Wolf Blade and narrowed her eyes. Her youthful eyes sparkled. She curled her lips and said in disdain, "Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish." Yun Jian's voice was flat, and no one could hear any changes in it. However, just as she said the last word, Yun Jian's figure flashed, and what appeared next was a dazzling flash of lightning. Her figure was as fast as lightning, and her speed was even faster than Wolf Blade's. Wolf Blade's eyes widened, but his many years of experience allowed him to quickly calm down. He closed his fingers and clenched his hand into a fist. He changed his strategy and threw a punch at Yun Jian. Yun Jian narrowed her lips. She also stretched out her hand and clenched her fist, slamming it against Wolf Blade's fist. Ha! Wolf Blade roared. Pooh! At the same time, the sound of a blade piercing into flesh could be heard. What the audience saw was Yun Jian extending her arm and punching Wolf Blade at the same time. Both of their fists were tied. They saw Yun Jian squinting her eyes and smirking. When the two fists collided, her soft leg bent in an arc and hit Wolf Blade's chest from his back. What was different from normal shoes was that Yun Jian's seemingly ordinary white shoes had a small knife stuck in the tip. At this moment, Yun Jian hooked her leg, and the knife on the tip of her shoe ruthlessly pierced Wolf Blade's heart. In a fight between assassins, especially in a fight between experts, a single move could decide the outcome. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others clearly saw that Yun Jian had used one hand to block Wolf Blade's fist, while her other hand had inserted a small knife into the tip of her own white shoes. Then, when her fist collided with Wolf Blade, the tip of her shoe pierced Wolf Blade's heart at the same time. This series of impossible movements appeared out of thin air in front of everyone's eyes. The outcome would be decided in one round. Wolf Blade suddenly widened his eyes. He looked at the girl's smiling face up close, and finally spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Slaying. Wolf Blade tried his best to shout the word God, but he realized that his body was already falling backward. He stared at Yun Jian in horror as his body fell to the ground and died with his eyes wide open. There was only one person in the world who could do what Yun Jian did with such ease. That person was slaying God. Chapter 152. Killing one of the top 10 international assassins, Wolfblade, with one move. If Yun Jian defeating Shinji with one move was shocking, then at this moment, everyone's mouths were wide open enough to fit a large duck egg. Yun Jian, where did she come from? Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were stunned on the spot. Every cell in their body was boiling in shock. Yuan Shixiao's small eyes were also wide open. Shinji, on the other hand, shook his head violently, staring at Yun Jian in disbelief. He backed away slowly, muttering, "Impossible! Impossible!" Even the top 10 assassins in the international assassin chart were no match for Yun Jian, and were killed in one move. Who else could subdue her then? No! 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 Shinji screamed. His deep male voice sounded sharp and crazy. "Just you wait, Yun Jian. Shinji, just you wait. Next time I'll kill you. I'll kill you next time." Shinji glared fiercely at Yun Jian. He opened his mouth and spat out threatening words. His voice was eerie and terrifying. "Do you think I'll let you live until the next time?" The creepy smirk on Yun Jian's lips abruptly vanished as she slowly made her way to Shinji. Even her tone was instilling fear from the bottom of one's heart. She had let Shinji go last time because of Suzetian. She had never been a charitable person. She was not stupid. Shinji wanted her life, and even implicated the people she cared about. If this happened once, there would be a second time. How could she let go of a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time, and continue living in this world? You want to kill me? No, no, no. I'm a member of Country-Wise national team. If you kill me, aren't you afraid that you'll become Country-Wise enemy? This was Shiniji's trump card. When Wolfblade was killed by Yun Jian, he did not show any fear, because he felt that Yun Jian would not dare to kill him. "Do you think I'll be afraid?" Yun Jian smiled contemptuously, her calm and beautiful lips curling up. Shinji panicked when he heard that. She was indeed the kind of person who was not afraid of anything. Thus he turned around and ran. In order to escape, he did not even care about his sister. "Big brother." Shinji was shocked as she watched Shinji run towards the back door of the warehouse. She couldn't react for a long time. "So," Yun Jian sneered. She reached out and pulled out the knife stuck in the tip of her shoe. Then, she threw it in the direction Shinji had fled. Pooh! From afar, Shiniji's heart was pierced by the dagger thrown by the girl, and he fell to the ground like a puddle of mud. Shinji dead. Shitaji was shocked. She slowly slid to the ground and slowly became paralyzed. Everything she did was for her brother. She never thought that the brother who loved her the most would abandon her and run away. And now his brother was dead. At that moment, Shinji completely lost her will. Her eyes were lifeless. Yun Jian did not care about Shinji. She strode towards Chen Sini and quickly untied the rope that bound Chen Sini. "Both of you come and help her." Yun Jian turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Only then did the two of them come back to their senses. They ran over to help Chen Sini. Yun Jian's killing stance was terrifying, but the two of them were not frightened. They were just a little shocked. Chapter 153. Yun Jian asked Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen to help Chen Sini, because she had no more energy to support Chen Sini. Although Yun Jian had killed Wolfblade in one hit, she had used up almost all the energy in her body. In a battle between masters, it was true that one hit would determine the winner. However, Yun Jian knew that if she did not kill Wolfblade in one hit, her current body would not be able to support her to defeat Wolfblade. After all, Wolfblade was one of the top 10 assassins in the assassin ranking. He was not a second-rate assassin, especially when her current body's energy was not even 1/10 of what it was in her previous life. Yun Jian could only use her killer move to win. Wolfblade lost because his killer move was not as fast, accurate, and ruthless as Yun Jian's. Yun Jian had used up all her energy. Although she did not show it, only she knew how much energy she had. Beep, beep, beep. At this moment, the sound of an alarm came from the door. Ling Yichen had called the police earlier, so it was normal for the police to come now. However, there were 2 more bodies on the ground. It would be abnormal for them to negotiate with the police. Don't worry, leave it to me. I'm familiar with the people in the police station. Yuan Xixiao volunteered. He looked at Yun Jian as he spoke. It was only when Yun Jian looked down and hummed in agreement that Yuan Xixiao breathed a sigh of relief. Yuan Xixiao was afraid that Yun Jian would not forgive his sister, Yuan Xiaoyu, for what she had done before. However, when he heard Yun Jian's reply, he immediately felt relieved. Yuan Xixiao was in the underworld. Naturally, he had met the people in the police station and had a good relationship with them. In the end, this incident was suppressed by Yuan Xixiao. With Yuan Xixiao's protection, Yun Jian's murder was not exposed at all. In fact, the police were surprisingly happy when they received the bodies this time. This was because Wolf Blade was an assassin on the international assassin ranking. At the same time, he was also one of the most wanted criminals in the world. The result was that they got rid of a wanted criminal that the international police wanted to arrest. The police station could be considered to have made a great contribution. When Wolf Blade was killed in Longmen City, the leader of the special forces, Gu Junjian, learned about it. He wanted to investigate immediately. Who killed the famous and cunning Wolf Blade? Gu Junjian was the leader of the country's special forces. He held a high position, and there were not many people or things that could attract his attention. In spite of it, Wolf Blade's death in Longmen City had completely caught his attention. Gu Junjian conducted a thorough search in secret, and even mobilized the police force to find the culprit at all costs. Of course, she did not know that she had caused a commotion among the police. They took advantage of the time to rush back to the forest park and catch the bus back to school. She did not see Lu Rongrong on the bus back. The class was split into 2 batches and was arranged into different buses. Once they got off the bus, Yun Jian blocked the other bus that was carrying her class and dragged Lu Rongrong off the bus, teaching her a harsh lesson in front of the whole school. For people like Lu Rongrong, ordinary lessons were useless. Yun Jian dashed into the bus and dragged her down. Once she did, she slapped her countless times, smirking as she did so. You know what you're doing. If you dare to do anything again, I'll make sure you die. Don't. Have. You. Died. Without. A proper. Burial. Place. You. A slap for each word. It was only when Lu Rongrong screamed and fainted, her cheeks swollen, that Yun Jian turned to leave. Chapter 154. Lu Rongrong being beaten up by Yun Jian in public caused a commotion in the school, but as the subject of everyone's discussion, Yun Jian had long stayed in the classroom obediently. The next few days were peaceful for Yun Jian. The only difference was that Ling Yichen had followed Zhang Xiaofeng and would be fighting to be Yun Jian's disciple after class. Whenever he saw Ling Yichen, who had toned down his playboy self and was admiring Yun Jian in a different way, Zhang Xiaofeng would always point at Yun Jian fiercely to declare his sovereignty. This is my master. Ling Yichen, don't even think about making my master take you as his disciple. After that, Zhang Xiaofeng would go up to Yun Jian with a grin and talk about this and that. Chen Xinyi had recovered from the fright that day and was back to her usual carefree self. Yun Jian received news from Zhang Jifan as well, saying that the renovation of the storefront had begun, and 1/3 of the space had already been renovated. It was believed that the renovation would be completed in less than 2 months. Yun Jian smiled in response. Once the renovation was completed, the company could officially start running. She was confident that she could set the new Start Auto Sales company on the right track and become a household name within the next year. Snake Lizard sent a message to Yun Jian, telling her that she could not rush back to Longmen City for the time being, but she had already ordered someone to send Yun Jian's beloved car, the flagship limited edition Ferrari LaFerrari, to Yun Jian. Yun Jian's smirk deepened when she heard the news. Yun Jian was not only a secret agent, she was also a collector who loved luxury cars. She loved sports cars and supercars produced all over the country. In her previous life, she had collected a lot of limited edition cars, but among all the cars, Her favorite was this Ferrari LaFerrari. Snake. Lizard had always been meticulous and did not forget to send her beloved car over this time. Yunjian was glad about it. After a few days of peace, Qin Yiru received news that her mother, Yunjian's grandmother, was sick and wanted Qin Yiru to go home to visit her. Qin Yiru had indeed left the Yun family, but that did not mean that she could abandon her biological mother and become an unfilial daughter who did not even return home. Thus, on this day, Qin Yiru took the remaining 100 renminbi from her salary, which she had just received after deducting her living expenses, and boarded the bus to return to Xinjiang town. In Yunjian's memory, Qin Yiru's family was not good people. Furthermore, Yun Gang might have already returned to Xinjiang town. Yunjian was afraid that Yun Gang would come to Qin Yiru's doorstep and cause trouble. She was afraid that no one would support Qin Yiru. Thus, she insisted on going back with him. Qin Yiru naturally understood her daughter's thoughts. She did not want to disappoint her daughter, so she brought Yunjian back with her. Qin Yiru's family was also in Xinjiang town. However, Xinjiang town was quite big, so her family's house was still a little far from Yun Gang's house, which she used to live in. It was a 3-story brick house with 3 suites. In this day and age, those who could afford to build a 3-story house with 3 suites were considered to be the best in town. To be honest, Yunjian's grandmother's family was not poor. Qin Yiru's sister Qin Junlan had a good family background. She would often help her uncle's family, who lived with Yunjian's maternal grandparents. Qin Yiru's mother gave birth to 5 children. One of them died young, so Qin Junlan was the first in seniority. Her eldest son was Qin Liqian, and the next in seniority was Qin Yiru. As for the last daughter, she was Yunjian's youngest aunt, Qin Fangfang, who had married out of the province in her early years. She would only come home to visit during the new year. Qin Yiru knocked on the door and opened it. She was stunned when she saw a house full of people sitting in it. She was stunned because the person sitting in the main seat was none other than her mother, who had claimed that she was sick and wanted her to go home to visit her. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and saw 2 people standing next to her nominal grandmother, who was sitting in the main seat with an intimidating aura. Qin Junlan and Zhang Taijun. However, Zhang Tiejuan's face was dark, and he looked gloomy. At that moment, Yunjian was suddenly enlightened. She was wondering why her grandmother, who had never liked her mother, would suddenly call Qin Yiru home to visit her. "Mom, are you okay?" Qin Yiru was stunned, but she still pulled Yunjian in. She asked because she was concerned about her mother's condition. Chapter 155. Mom, you're not sick? Qin Yiru asked in surprise when she saw her mother, Zhang Meihua, sitting on the stool and pointing at her. She was strong and did not pay attention to Zhang Meihua's question. After all, Zhang Meihua had asked Qin Yiru to come home with the excuse that she was sick in bed. Sick? What sick? You unfilial daughter. Do you really want me to die early from illness? You're so useless. You didn't even discuss something as important as divorcing Yun Gang at home. If it weren't for Taijun bumping into Yun Jian in Longmen City, you wouldn't have come home even if you were beaten to death. If I didn't pretend to be sick and ask you to come home, you wouldn't even acknowledge your mother, would you? Zhang Meihua slammed her hand on the table and spat out a string of words. In fact, the daughter that Zhang Meihua had always hated the most was Qin Yiru. She had high hopes for her son, Qin Liqian. When she named her son Qin Liqian, she had hoped that he would be rich, and that he could earn big bucks in the future. Even if Qin Liqian grew up to be a spineless coward, Zhang Meihua still thought highly of him. From Zhang Meihua's perspective, she was an old woman who favored boys over girls and valued the rich over the poor. Qin Yiru had not married well, but she had to support 2 children with both hands. Even food and clothing had become a problem. This made Zhang Meihua dislike her even more. In fact, Zhang Meihua had received the news that Qin Yiru was planning to leave the Yin family. However, she did not mention it, nor did she ask. What Zhang Meihua was most afraid of was that Qin Yiru would really bring the 2 children to stay at her parents' house shamelessly. Zhang Meihua even wondered why she had given birth to such a dumb daughter. If she had known that she was so useless, she would have killed her in the cradle. As for why she had pretended to be sick to call Qin Yuru back, it was because Zhang Taijun said that he saw Yun Jian at the auction. Not only that, Yun Jian had also bought a storefront with more than 10 million yuan. More than 10 million yuan. Zhang Meihua had never seen so much money in her life. Where did Yun Jian get the money from? She actually bought a lousy storefront with so much money. When Zhang Meihua first heard the news, she was flustered. Especially when she heard from Zhang Taijun that Yun Jian knew Mayor Gu. Forget that she knew Mayor Gu. Zhang Meihua was also Yun Jian's uncle-in-law. Not only did she not praise her uncle-in-law to Mayor Gu, she had even indirectly encouraged Mayor Gu to distance himself from Zhang Taijun. Zhang Meihua's mind you, Zhang Meihua, Zhang Meihua, Zhang Meihua's father. Zhang Meihua Qin Yuru was reprimanded for no reason. Biting her lip, she finally said meekly, "Mom, it's my fault. She. Touch your conscience and tell me, how does your sister's family treat you? Your family is suffering and starving. Isn't it all because your sister lent you money to tide you over? But look at your family's Yun Jian. She actually went to the auction alone. I don't know where she got more than 10 million yuan. More than 10 million yuan. She only bought a storefront. Also, your family's Yun Jian knows Mayor Gu. She knows Mayor Gu because she's capable. But how did she repay your sister's family? Taijun had something to ask of Mayor Gu. But what did your daughter do? She actually encouraged Mayor Gu to ignore Taijun. I was wondering why our Qin family gave birth to such an unfilial descendant like you. What sins have I, Zhang Meihua, committed? Chapter 156. Qin Yuru grew more shocked as she listened to Zhang Meihua, her eyes widening in the end. She glanced at Yun Jian and stuttered to defend Yun Jian to Zhang Meihua. Mom, how can Xiao Jian have more than 10 million yuan? How does she know Mayor Gu? There must be some kind of misunderstanding here. How can your brother-in-law be lying? Zhang Meihua interrupted Qin Yuru angrily, glaring at Qin Yuru at the same time. Zhang Taijun, who had been staring at Yun Jian for a long time, finally spoke up, his tone heavy with concern. Sis Yuru, how can I spout nonsense? Your Xiao Jian is right here. What happened that day is clear as day. Ask her if you don't believe me. Zhang Taijun had actually thought of many solutions after he was ignored that day. His plan could not go to waste. If Mayor Gu's plan was not approved, his funds would not be able to flow. In the end, there was only one result, and that was that the factory that he had set up with his friend would face the danger of bankruptcy. Hence, Zhang Taijun came up with a great idea. He came back to town and told Zhang Meihua everything about Yun Jian. This way, Zhang Meihua would stand up for him. As for Yun Jian's mother, Qin Yuru, she was Zhang Meihua's daughter after all, so she dared not disobey her. By then, as long as Qin Yuru reprimanded Yun Jian, she would not be afraid that the latter would refuse to help. Zhang Tiejuan's ultimate goal was for Yun Jian to convince Mayor Gu and get him to sign and stamp his approval document. Yun Jian was amused when she saw everyone's gaze on her. How could she not see through Zhang Taijun and Zhang Meihua's plan? In spite of it, Yun Jian was not flustered. Since she could do it, she naturally had a way to solve it. She looked at everyone coldly, and her red lips curled up. That's right, I know Mayor Gu. After a pause, Yun Jian held back. She glanced sideways at everyone before looking at Qin Yuru and explained, lying smoothly, I bought the store on behalf of Mayor Gu. The money belongs to him too. It's inconvenient for him to show up, so I helped him bid for the store. When Yun Jian said that, Zhang Meihua's gaze on Yun Jian turned colder. She had thought that the money belonged to Yun Jian. If the money belonged to Yun Jian, no matter where it came from, it was reasonable that Yun Jian should be filial piety toward her, as she was her grandmother. If Yun Jian was rich, Zhang Meihua's attitude toward her in the future would definitely improve. Yin to her. Now that Yun Jian had said so, everyone actually believed her. After all, she was just a student. How could she have more than 10 million yuan? However, Zhang Meihua did not intend to let go. Even if Yun Jian did not have money, She still knew Mayor Gu. Thus, Zhang Meihua immediately pointed at Yun Jian and ordered her aggressively. Since you know Mayor Gu, how could you smear your uncle's reputation? Your uncle has always treated your family well. Since the matter has been explained clearly, you should quickly contact Mayor Gu to help your uncle. Then this matter will be over. Zhang Meihua's tone sounded as if Yun Jian had done something wrong and had to make up for it. Yun Jian suddenly felt that it was laughable. Her explanation was meant for Qin Yiru, but they actually thought that she was explaining to everyone? Why should I help you? Because when my mother left the Yun family and had nowhere to go, as her family, you did not say a word and did not care about her life or death. Or because you came to collect debts from my mother when she was injured and hospitalized, because you were afraid that she would not be able to repay them. Yun Jian suddenly narrowed her eyes and pointed out Zhang Meihua's and the others' evil deeds. At the same time, her aura suddenly changed, and a sinister chill assaulted everyone's hearts. Chapter 157. Hearing Yun Jian's blatant words, everyone was stunned. They did not expect her to actually say it. In fact, everyone knew what they were talking about. But Qin Yiru would never say such things in front of her elders. Even when her family was so unbearable, Qin Yiru tolerated it as much as she could. Now that her daughter had pointed it out so blatantly, Qin Yiru felt a stinging sensation in her nose for some reason. Recalling the suffering she had gone through all these years, and the indifference of her family, tears pooled in her eyes. As her tears fell uncontrollably, Qin Yiru turned around in a fluster with her back facing everyone and wiped her tears. There was silence. She thought about how she would have died long ago if she did not have Qin Yiru and Xiao Jian. Yun Jian did not say anything as she rubbed Qin Yiru's back to comfort her. In spite of it, Yun Jian did not think that she was wrong. If she did not say these things out loud, they might become the source of Qin Yiru's pain for the rest of her life. She might become Zhang Meihua and the rest's exploitation machine for the rest of her life. She knew that she had never experienced human nature and did not know how to face it, but this was the only thing she would not admit. If they showed weakness to Zhang Meihua and the rest, it would mean that they could be so weak. This was not an outcome that Yun Jian could tolerate. Zhang Meihua and the rest were stunned as well. Zhang Meihua froze not because she was ashamed or remorseful. It was because it was the truth, but it was not something to be happy about when it came from someone else's mouth. Hence, Zhang Meihua slapped the table even more angrily and shouted at Yun Jian. Because I gave birth to your mother. She's a piece of flesh that fell from my womb. Without me, your mother won't exist. You won't be born either. So you have to listen to me. Zhang Meihua did not say it out loud, but everyone else had added it in their minds. As she spoke, Zhang Meihua even swept away the chicken feathers on the table and knocked them on the table. She then reprimanded Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru, look at your daughter. Siding with an outsider. You're still spouting nonsense. After saying this, Zhang Meihua completely ignored Qin Yiru's tear-stained face. She even criticized Yun Jian in front of Qin Yiru. Your daughter is so petty and unfilial. She's already like this at such a young age. What can a person like her do when she grows up? Zhang Meihua was indeed embarrassed from anger today. Zhang Meihua was a person who cared a lot about her reputation. Now that Yun Jian had revealed such a blatant truth in front of everyone, she naturally couldn't hold back her anger. After Zhang Meihua said this, Qin Junlan, who was beside her, chimed in. It was really one answering and one singing. Qin Liqian and the others were also on Zhang Meihua's side. Actually, Yun Jian's grandfather had passed away a few years ago due to illness. At that time, Yun Jian was still very young. In Yun Jian's memory, her grandfather was very good to Qin Yiru, and even more so to the original Yun Jian. Sometimes, he would even secretly give all his hard-earned wages to Qin Yiru to subsidize her family's expenses. Of course, these things were hidden from Zhang Meihua. Later on, her grandfather, Qin Yiru, passed away. There was no one in the family who could support Qin Yiru anymore. Therefore, Qin Yiru rarely returned to her parents' home. Even after leaving the Yin family, she was unwilling to return to her parents' home. Instead, She chose to leave Xinjiang town with her child to seek refuge with her old friends. I don't need someone like you to judge whether I'm successful or not. Old hag, if you dare to say another word, I guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow. After comforting Qin Yiru, Yun Jian turned around and stared sharply at Zhang Meihua and the others. Yun Jian's eyes turned a strange dark red. She looked like a murderous demon. Qin Junlan, who was standing beside Zhang Meihua, felt her eyelids twitch when she saw Yun Jian like this. Her. Qin Junlan was suddenly reminded of how Yun Jian had smashed a wooden stool in front of her in the hospital, and how she had helped everyone dodge the sniper's bullet in the hotel. She pointed at Yun Jian and screamed at the top of her lungs, because Yun Jian's gaze was just as terrifying as hers back then. What are you screaming for? Zhang Meihua's tone was obviously weaker when she spoke to Qin Junlan, but she still reprimanded her for screaming. Zhang Meihua even grumbled in her heart. Yun Jian only gave them a look. Look, did they have to be so scared? No matter what, Yun Jian was just a child. Mom, you don't know. She smashed a wooden stool in the hospital with one kick. When we met at the hotel last time, she even pushed us to dodge the sniper's bullet. Qin Junlan suddenly remembered and was scared, so she screamed. Chapter 158. Zhang Meihua and her friends were good with their words in the past when they bickered with each other. However, when they really got into a fight, they would turn weak immediately without any ability. To put it bluntly, they were people who loved to spout nonsense and put on airs when they were actually weak. Especially when Qin Junlan said that Yun Jian crushed a wooden stool with one foot and led everyone to dodge the sniper's bullet. Zhang Meihua and her friends could not help shuddering just from listening to it. To them, it was as miraculous as a group of sows flying in the sky. Since it came from Qin Junlan, Zhang Meihua and the rest did not doubt the authenticity of her words. Therefore, all of them stared at Yun Jian in fear, as if they were trying to see through Yun Jian. Since you said that I'm petty and unfilial, I'll do as you say today. How about I break your necks one by one right now? Seeing how fearful these people were of her after hearing what she said, Yun Jian changed her strategy as a faint voice came from her throat. Of course, she would not really break all of their necks. Even if she wanted to, Qin Yiru would probably not watch her do it. They were her family after all. Even if she abandoned everything, and no matter how disgusting these people were, the blood relationship could not be severed. As expected, after Yun Jian spoke, Qin Yiru, who had been quietly wiping her tears, cried out, Xiao Jian, don't. Murder was illegal, not to mention that these people were related to her by blood. No matter how bad it was, Qin Yiru did not wish to see such an extreme scene happen. Qin Yiru could no longer be bothered with how Yun Jian had become so powerful. After so many days, Qin Yiru had gradually gotten used to Yun Jian's current personality. Whatever she said, she would definitely do it. Hence, Qin Yiru stopped Yun Jian right away. Yun Jian was unmoved by Qin Yiru's words. On the contrary, Yun Jian glanced sideways at Qin Yiru and told her with narrowed eyes, Mom, stay out of this. With that, she glared daggers at Zhang Meihua and the others. Suddenly, she extended her hand and conjured a small knife out of nowhere like a magic trick. With a sinister smirk, she approached the men with the knife in her hand. If I stab all of you to death with this knife, I don't think you'll feel any pain before you die. As Yun Jian spoke, she rubbed the sharp tip of the knife with her fingers, uttering the terrifying words in a normal tone. Qin Yiru would probably feel bad if she attacked Zhang Meihua and her family. Even if she scolded them, it would be useless because Zhang Meihua and her friends were shameless people. In spite of it, Yun Jian had countless ways to deal with such situations. She could even force a brainwashed assassin to talk, let alone Zhang Meihua and the others. She intended to teach these people a lesson. You, what are you trying to do? Qin Junlan was so scared that she subconsciously retreated. She sounded like she was about to cry. It was obvious that what Yun Jian had done previously made her tremble in fear. Zhang Meihua was indeed Qin Junlan's mother. Not only were their tones and words similar, but they were also equally timid. Zhang Meihua was scared out of her wits by Yun Jian's eerie and terrifying actions. She kept retreating. The group of people retreated until they reached the corner of the wall. They could no longer retreat any further and stopped. It's good that you're standing there. Let's see if my knife can hit one of your heads like a flying knife. Yun Jian chuckled evilly. As she spoke, she suddenly held the knife in her hand. What are you doing? What you're doing is illegal. The last sound came from the group of people's screams. It was because the saber in Yun Jian's hand was already flying toward where they were with the last clang. Qin Yiru could not stop it in time. She shouted, "No!" And Yun Jian had already thrown the knife. After the screams, the group of people who were leaning against the wall opened their eyes in fear. Zhang Meihua looked up slightly and saw that the knife was embedded in the wall right above her head. Zhang Meihua was dumbfounded. The group of people heaved a sigh of relief. Just then Zhang Meihua, who was scared out of her wits, felt something warm flowing out from under her flowery pants. Everyone smelled the stench and looked over. They saw a yellowish liquid flowing out from under Zhang Meihua's pants. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Chapter 159. Tsk Tisk. When Yun Jian saw this scene, she held her chin with her hand and sighed. Her goal was to scare them, so that they would not dare to cause trouble for Qin Yiru in the future. However, he didn't expect Zhang Meihua to be so aggressive and fearless all the time. She only teased them a little, and Zhang Meihua was so scared that she peed her pants. Really, you can't judge a book by its cover. Let me tell you, if today's incident happens again. Yun Jian glanced at the people who were paralyzed with fear. She paused and continued. If it happens again, this knife will pierce through your heads. I, Yun Jian, am a woman of my words. If you don't believe me, wipe your heads clean and wait for me. Yun Jian realized that ever since she was reborn, she had done a lot of threatening and frightening things. If this had happened in her previous life, the group of people in front of her would have turned into corpses. However, her identity was different now, and her situation was different. More importantly, she had her mother and brother. Especially in a society ruled by law, killing people was illegal. Her nature was slowly changing. It was just that Yun Jian did not notice it. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she tiptoed and took the knife from the wall above Qin Yiru. Then she turned and walked to Qin Yiru. She pulled Qin Yiru's hand and walked out. She did not want to stay here for a second longer. Presumably Qin Yiru felt the same way. Seeing Yun Jian's actions, no one dared to make a sound. When they saw Yun Jian pulling Qin Yiru away, Zhang Meihua was like a balloon that had lost its air. She fell to the ground with a thump. It was only when they were far away from the Qin residence that Qin Yiru shuddered, tears streaming down her cheeks like a faucet. Yun Jian did not know how to comfort Qin Yiru. She placed her hand on Qin Yiru's back and rubbed gently to comfort her. Just when Yun Jian thought that Qin Yiru would be quiet for a long time, Qin Yiru suddenly spoke. She closed her eyes like she had made a decision before she sighed and said mournfully, "Xiao Jian, I want to go somewhere." Qin Yiru did not mention a word about Yun Jian's unusual skills. Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief when she did not ask. Xinjiang Town, Mount Wui. Mount Wui was an ordinary mountain range that was located near Xinjiang Town. Near the Wui mountain was farmland, but there was a cemetery dedicated to the burial of the older generation after they had passed away. Yun Jian's grandfather, Qin Youfu, was buried here. When Qin Yiru was in Xinjiang Town, she would come here alone every few days to pay respects to her father, who had been the best to her when he was alive. She would remove the weeds in front of his grave, so that others would not mistake it as an untended grave. Life and death were like fleeting clouds in Qin Yiru's eyes. In the blink of an eye, her father had passed away for so many years. She was still in a daze even now. "Xiao Jian, he's your grandpa," Qin Yiru told Yun Jian as she stared at the old man's black photo on the tombstone with teary eyes. Yun Jian followed Qin Yiru's gaze and saw the old man's frail yet benevolent black and white photo. Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru missed her father. She had received too little familial love. Her husband's betrayal and disloyalty Her family's lack of understanding and resentment. The only father who treated her well had passed away early. The original owner of the body was immature. Although she was well-behaved, she never understood Chinyiru's pain. Chinyiru could only endure it alone. Yun Jian went over and gently rested Chinyiru's head on her shoulder before patting her back. Yun Jian spoke softly and gently. Mom, let's live well. Live a more glorious life than anyone else. Grandpa will be happy to see this from heaven. Chinyiru's tears dripped onto Yun Jian's shoulder. She nodded with clenched teeth, feeling warm and sorrowful at the same time. The feeling was indescribable. Those who were alive had to live well. Yun Jian did not know why she said that. Chapter 160. Before leaving Mount Wui and returning to Longmen City, Yun Jian went to Lu Fian's house. Her return to Xinjiang town this time was unexpected, but since she was back, Yun Jian went to visit Lu Fian as well. It did not take long before she boarded the bus back to Longmen City. When Li Xiangyi, Wu Kuei, and Wen Rui's basketball team heard that Yun Jian had returned to Xinjiang town, they abandoned their ongoing basketball match and rushed to Lu Fian's house. It was a pity that Yun Jian had already returned to Longmen City. After spending a weekend at home, Yun Jian was about to go to school with her backpack when she saw a tall and muscular man standing in front of her when she exited the villa. The man was standing with his body turned to the side. His face was rather handsome from the side, but there was a hint of gentleness between his brows. Yun Jian recognized him immediately. He was none other than CE's subordinate, the calm man named Mo. Senator. Speaking of CE, Yun Jian had not seen him since CE left due to an emergency during the banquet in Country M. She was slightly taken aback when she saw CE's subordinate, but she went over anyway. Miss Yun, Mo's son called out to Yun Jian politely, a respectful expression on his handsome face. Yun Jian turned to look at Mo's son with her backpack slung over her shoulder. She smiled. Is something the matter? Young master asked me to pass this to you. Mo's son did not explain further as he fished out an envelope from his pocket and passed it to Yun Jian. His gaze was dark. After Yun Jian took the envelope, he continued. Young master said that you'll understand after reading this. After saying that, Mo's son took 2 steps back, turned around and left. He was only here to deliver the letter. Yun Jian was baffled. She extended her slender fingers to open the envelope swiftly and pulled out a note from it. Reading the note, Yun Jian lowered her gaze and grinned all of a sudden. As expected, the old guys from the Kosha mercenaries couldn't sit still anymore. They even extended their influence to the Enhan organization. However, Yun Jian didn't know why CE had told her that these old men wanted to work with Enhan. Did CE notice that he was the boss of the Kosha mercenaries? Now, Yun Jian had basically confirmed CE's identity. Who else could CE be able to make Shuang, one of the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization, his subordinate other than the leader of the organization? Yun Jian was not surprised because she was an agent trained by the Enhan organization. She had some understanding of the Enhan organization. For example, the leader of Enhan was a young man. She had always known about this, although she didn't know who it was. Other than that, she couldn't find any other relevant information, even in her past life. She just didn't expect CE to be the leader of Enhan organization. It was obvious that CE did not plan to hide his identity from Yun Jian, since he admitted that Shui Ying was his subordinate in front of her. Yun Jian could not wrap her head around it. When Yun Jian returned to school after the weekend self-study session, a girl rushed into the classroom just as she placed her bag on the table. This person was none other than Chen Sini, who had a carefree personality and was never overcautious. Since the kidnapping incident, Chen Sini had completely recovered. She ran to Yun Jian and held up a form in her hand with a chuckle, telling Yun Jian, "He he he, Yun Jian. Did you know? I heard from the English teacher in the office just now that some of the top students from DE Senior High School are going to be sent to a foreign school for a week as foreign exchange students. Our school has 5 spots, and they've all been allocated to Year 3 students. I've been selected too." Your results are so good that you're already a candidate. This means that we can go abroad for further studies together. Chun Sini shook Yunjian's hand excitedly, overjoyed. Chun Sini was the English class representative. Her results were decent, but there were many others who were better than her. Nevertheless, it was a surprise that she was selected this time, due to her high level of English. Yunjian did not express any joy or worry about the sudden news. When she heard that the students from DE Senior High School were going as well, she could not help raising a brow. Chapter 161. What about me? What about me? Zhang Xiaofeng was the first to pop his head over and ask excitedly when he heard that they were representing the school to study abroad. Forget about it. Haha, your English is so bad, and you don't know anything about speaking. You're not part of this. Chun Sini teased Zhang Xiaofeng as she waved the form in her hand. The brother and sister pair were in an uproar. Yun Jian was already used to such things, so she merely pressed her lips together. If her brother was going, she was going as well. Moreover, if Qin Yiru heard that both of them were representing the school to participate in such an honorable event, she would probably be thrilled, right? As it turned out, Qin Yiru held her cheeks as tears streamed down her cheeks when she heard the news. These were the tears of a mother who was touched to hear that her children were fighting for her honor after going through so much. When Yun Jian heard Chun Sini say that the top students of DE Senior High School were being sent to an overseas school as exchange students for a week, she already knew that her brother, Yun Yi, would definitely be on the list of invitees. It was because her brother Yun Yi was the first to be invited as the top student representative of DE Senior High School. Since the event this time was related to the school's and even the country's honor, all the students who participated in this trip would be reimbursed by their superiors. In other words, the participants did not have to pay for anything out of their own pocket, unless they wanted to buy souvenirs from overseas. Qin Yiru breathed a huge sigh of relief when she heard about it. She did not have any money, but she would definitely blame herself if her daughter and son were to lose such a chance to perform because of this. Xiao Jian Xiao Yi, you're both my pride. Qin Yiru wiped her tears and took out a few crumpled 100 yuan bills that she had been keeping for a long time from her pocket, wanting to give 50 yuan each to Yun Jian and Yun Yi as she spoke. Take it. You still have to spend what you need to when you're overseas. Don't let others laugh at you. Qin Yiru pushed the money into their hands. Mom, we don't need to spend any money. The school will take care of our food and accommodation. Yun Yi quickly stuffed the money back into Qin Yiru's hands. He knew that this money was the salary that Qin Yiru had saved for a long time. Yun Jian held the money in her hand and felt warm in her heart. She was not in a hurry to return the money to Qin Yiru. The wealth that she had was more than what an ordinary person could spend in a few lifetimes. However, in her heart, this huge wealth was not as warm as the 50 yuan that Qin Yiru had given her. After a long time, Yun Jian finally put the money on the table and pushed it in front of Qin Yiru. Mom, I don't want this money. You know that I know Mayor Gu, and I have a partnership with him. I don't lack pocket money. Yun Jian's words were ambiguous, but she expressed her meaning. She could only use Mayor Gu and come up with a random lie now. Xiao Jian Yu. Qin Yiru was stunned and was about to speak when Yun Jian interrupted her. She even took out 2 100 yuan notes from her pocket and placed them gently on the table, pressing her lips together. It's true, Mom. You have to believe me. This money is earned legitimately. If she took out all her money and showed it to Qin Yiru would probably faint from shock. Thus, she could only take it slowly and let Qin Yiru digest it slowly. Qin Yiru opened her mouth, but swallowed her words in the end. She looked at Yun Jian in relief and said while holding back her tears, Good girl. It's Mom who's useless. You guys have suffered. Going overseas required going through the procedures. Underage children had to go through a series of complicated procedures, such as their parents' signatures. Qin Yiru did not go to work today. She had applied for leave to go through the procedures for the 2 children. The diplomatic event this time was set to be held a month later, so there was still plenty of time for the students to prepare or pack up. When Yin Jian returned to school this week, she was summoned to the office for some reason. It was only when she arrived that she saw an unfamiliar middle-aged man standing in front of her. The man was sitting upright, dressed in ordinary clothes but exuding the righteousness of a soldier. Chapter 162. Gu Junjian recognized Yun Jian, but Yun Jian didn't recognize him. Hence, when his gaze landed on Yun Jian, she frowned. Standing beside Gu Junjian was their homeroom teacher, Mr. Yu. The moment Gu Junjian saw Yun Jian, he could tell that she was the person he was looking for. He had seen her photo before. She was an obedient and beautiful young lady. Hence, he strode towards Yun Jian. "You're Yun Jian." Gu Yunjian's cheerful voice carried a hint of nervousness. Not only was he a soldier, but he was also the leader of the National Special Forces. At the same time, he was also a scout who discovered the potential of the young generation to become Special Forces soldiers. The Special Forces soldiers were also commonly known as special agents. The special agents here were different from the underground agents in Yun Jian's previous life. The special agents here were loyal to the country. However, not everyone could become a special agent if they wanted to. Sometimes they even needed extraordinary talent. Hence, whenever Gu Junjian met a young person who was agile, he would pull them into the ranks of the Special Forces soldiers he trained. Yun Jian was able to kill the internationally famous cold-faced killer, Wolf Blade, all by herself. It was obvious that she was definitely a powerful person. At least, even as the leader of the National Advanced Special Forces, Gu Junjian couldn't do it. Hence, he planned to recruit her. "I am." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She glanced at Mr. Yu, then turned to look at Gu Junjian. When Gu Junjian heard Yun Jian admit it, he was delighted. He rolled his eyes and asked her, "Then did you appear in a large factory in the suburbs a few days ago?" This was the place where Yun Jian killed Wolf Blade. However, Gu Junjian couldn't directly ask her if she killed Wolf Blade in front of Mr. Yu. She was actually probing Yun Jian indirectly with her words. Yun Jian looked up. Although she didn't know why Gu Junjian asked this, she was used to not answering such questions. No, she never blinks when she tells a lie. Even Gu Junjian, who had always been close to her, could not tell that Yun Jian was lying. Could he have gotten the wrong person? She wasn't the one who killed Wolf Blade that day. Gu Junjian frowned and fell silent for a moment. A trace of disappointment appeared in his eyes. "Then I'm sorry. It seems that I've got the wrong person." Gu Junjian lowered his eyes and turned to leave the office. When the teachers in the office saw this, they were all puzzled, including Teacher Yu. When Gu Junjian arrived, he showed his certificate of assisting the police investigation. Coupled with what he said just now, could it be that Yun Jian was involved in something bad? Or did she do something wrong and get arrested by the police? If such a thing really happened, it wouldn't be a good thing for the school. However, before the teachers had time to think about it, Gu Junjian, who had already walked 2 steps past Yun Jian toward the office door, suddenly turned around. With lightning speed, he clenched his fist and swung it directly at Yun Jian. When the teachers in the office saw this scene, they were so frightened that they screamed. The strength of this sudden sneak attack was obvious. Was he planning to beat the thin and weak Yun Jian into meet pace with this punch? The teachers could almost predict the tragic outcome. Teacher Yu's heart tightened even more. Yun Jian was her student. If something happened to her in school, she had to take responsibility. Just when everyone was sure that Gu Junjian must have gone crazy and would suddenly throw a powerful punch at Yun Jian and guarantee that Yun Jian wouldn't be able to fight back and would be beaten to the ground. Yun Jian's eyes suddenly sharpened. She flipped her hand and easily caught Gu Junjian's domineering iron fist. She kicked Gu Junjian to the ground with her leg and held Gu Junjian's arm with one hand. Just like the police, she pinned Gu Junjian to the ground. This action frightened all the teachers in the office. In their hearts, students were good at learning. Whoever was good at learning and studying would have a bright future. Some teachers even liked to pretend to be high profile in front of their students. For example, if a teacher forgot to bring her books during class, she would casually ask a student to run an errand for her. The student wouldn't dare to disobey, because if the student didn't listen, the teacher would make things difficult for the student in the future. These teachers had never seen such a brutal scene, especially when Yun Jian actually single-handedly took down Gu Junjian, who had a strong physique. The group of teachers suddenly became uneasy. Chapter 163. Just when the teachers thought that Gu Junjian would fly into a rage, they heard a deep and clear male voice. Ha ha ha. Good job. Gu Junjian retracted his arm. Yun Jian did not stop him either. He stood up and laughed loudly, looking at Yun Jian again. The person in the factory that day was really you. How could a normal person be so calm when faced with such a surprise attack, and suppress him instead? Gu Junjian knew that he was not weak. He also knew how agile Yun Jian was just now. Even if she had wanted to kill him just now, he probably would not have been able to retaliate. This thought deepened Gu Junjian's thoughts. Yun Jian lowered her gaze. She did not expect Gu Junjian to make such a move, but since that was the case, she did not have to pretend anymore. Why are you looking for me? Yun Jian pursed her lips and asked. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Gu Junjian. I'm the captain of the country's advanced special forces. Gu Junjian was not afraid of revealing his identity in front of the teachers. As he spoke, he paused, then extended an invitation to Yun Jian in front of all the teachers. Now, on behalf of the country's advanced special forces, I would like to formally invite you to join us. Inviting Yun Jian to join the country's advanced special forces? The teachers' jaws dropped, all of them tongue-tied in shock. Gu Junjian had claimed to be a police officer in front of the teachers, and now he was the captain of the special forces. He wanted to invite Yun Jian to join them. Everyone knew that anyone who could be invited to join the advanced special forces would have a bright future that the teachers present could not compare to. Yun Jian. She actually had the honor to be personally invited by Gu Junjian, the captain of the advanced special forces. Just when the teachers thought that Yun Jian would immediately agree to Gu Junjian's request, she raised a brow and said, I refuse. Why? This exclamation came from Gu Junjian. One had to know that those who could enter the advanced special forces were the cream of the crop. It was an honor that everyone yearned for, and she actually refused. Reason? Yun Jian wasn't in a hurry. In front of everyone, she used her leg to hook a stool in front of the teacher's desk and sat down. She crossed her legs and looked at Gu Junjian. If Yun Jian did such a thing normally, the teachers would definitely scold her severely. She was still so arrogant and despotic in the teacher's office. She didn't know her identity as a student. But now the teachers, who were usually dignified and proud, did not even dare to breathe loudly. Gu Junjian immediately understood what Yun Jian meant. He smiled again as he thought about how Yun Jian was so young, and yet she did not immediately agree to his request for fame and fortune. Thus he smiled and promised, as long as you agree to join us, you can do whatever you want in Z country. As long as you don't take anyone's life recklessly, while you're in Z country, be it in or out of the country, the advanced special forces will be your strong backing. The condition was very tempting to Yun Jian. She was in Z country, but she would gradually be related to the underground organizations in her past life. What she hated the most was to see her family being harmed because of her when she was not around. Perhaps Qin Yiru and Yin Yi would be captured and used to threaten her because of her. Just like in her past life, it was because she did not have 3 heads and 6 arms that her younger brother was captured by the enemy and used to threaten her when she was on a mission. In the end, she lost her family tragically. Joining Gu Junjian's team would guarantee that Qin Yiru and Yin Yi would be well protected even if she was not in Longmen City in the future. The country's protection for them would not allow them to be harmed easily. Moreover, Gu Junjian meant that even if she injured someone in the future and was taken to the police station, she could be released immediately. Was this the treatment of the advanced special forces? Chapter 164. She agreed again. The teachers were still in a daze as they watched the scene unfold before them. Did that mean that Yun Jian would be a citizen of the country from now on? Even if her family background was poor, As long as she was a citizen of the country, these teachers would not dare to lay a finger on her. Welcome to the team. Gu Junjian was overjoyed when he heard that Yin Jian had agreed. From the exchange of blows with Yin Jian earlier, he could feel that Yin Jian alone was more powerful than all the young elites he had recruited from the team put together. How could Gu Junjian not be surprised that such a powerful person had joined them? Yin Jian nodded slightly and pursed her lips. Then I'll look for you on Friday after school. I'll introduce you to the young Advanced Special Forces candidates that we've discovered. Gu Junjian continued. People of Yin Jian's age would definitely not become members of the Advanced Special Forces right away after joining them. Usually, those who had just joined the organization were candidates. Of course, it was only a matter of time before young people with potential like Yin Jian would truly become National Advanced Special Forces after joining the organization. Yin Jian nodded again. Naturally, she had no objections. The teachers were still in a daze when Gu Junjian left the school after instructing their homeroom teacher, Teacher Yu. It had only been a short while and Yin Jian had become a member of the country's special forces. However, the teachers were not dumb enough to spread the news everywhere. After all, if they were the ones who spread the news, they would not be able to compensate for it even if they had 10 times the courage. Hence, other than the people present, no one else knew about what had happened in the office. Friday after school, Yin Jian walked out of the school gate with Chen Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng. Behind them was Ling Yichen. Just as they reached the school gate, Yin Jian saw Gu Junjian waiting for her in a flashy military jeep. When he saw Yin Jian, Gu Junjian honked his horn. Yin Jian turned to tell Chen Sini and the rest, "You guys go first." Then, under their watchful gazes, she walked towards the dark green military jeep. She opened the car door and sat in the front passenger seat. Then, under everyone's gaze, the military jeep slowly drove away and left their field of vision. Gu Junjian drove for a long distance, even out of the bustling city area and into the suburbs. Not long after driving out of the city's downtown area, Yin Jian saw a neat row of military garrisons in the forest. When they passed the guard post and entered the area, Gu Junjian got out of the car and walked over to open the door for Yin Jian. He said, "We're here. Come with me." Yin Jian nodded and followed Gu Junjian to a military training camp. Just as she opened the door of the military training camp, Yin Jian felt a sense of danger coming towards her. Without thinking, she reached out her hand and grabbed in front of her. A harmless dart with a broken arrowhead had deviated from its trajectory and was flying straight towards Yin Jian. However, Yin Jian caught it in the middle of her palm. It deviated from its trajectory again. I threw it wrong again. A sorrowful female voice was heard. Then, a young girl about the same age as Yin Jian appeared in front of them. "Chu Ning, what's wrong with you?" Seeing this, Gu Junjian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yin Jian reacted quickly. Otherwise, even if the dart had no arrowhead, it would still hurt someone. He scolded the young girl. "Officer Gu, I didn't do it on purpose." Chu Ning pouted, feeling wronged. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she looked straight at Yin Jian. She was overjoyed. Wow, is she the new little girl? Chapter 165. That's great. Chu Ning's face lit up with joy when she heard that. Chu Ning was not the only one in the military training camp. When they heard that Yin Jian was the new girl, a few boys who were training nearby ran over. Chu Ning was speaking to Yin Jian in a cheerful tone. "Hello, I'm Chu Ning. I'm 16 this year. You must be the new girl. You're so pretty, can we be friends?" As she spoke, Chu Ning blinked her clear and pretty eyes and looked at Yin Jian with a friendly gaze. "I'm Yin Jian." Yin Jian did not answer her directly, but since she was willing to introduce herself, it meant that she had acknowledged her. "Little girl, I'm Chu Xiangnan. I'm 18 this year. You can call me Big Brother, haha." A boy squeezed in from the side. He laughed heartily and pushed Chu Ning out of the way. Then, he stood in front of Yin Jian and introduced himself teasingly. Yin Jian only nodded slightly when she saw that. During this time, she took the opportunity to look around. There were not many people in the military training camp. Other than herself and Gu Junjian, there were only 6 people. They were all between 15 and 20 years old, and she was the youngest in the group. Presumably, this group of people was the same as her, who had been selected by Gu Junjian as candidates for the Advanced Special Forces. Alright, you guys get to know each other. Gu Junjian did not disturb them. After he said that, he turned to look at Yunjian and said to her, "From now on, you'll come here to train every week. Of course, if you have something to do, you can report it in advance." The facilities here were very complete. It was a good place to train and improve one's skills. Yunjian nodded naturally. She had been lacking a place like this to train her skills thoroughly. Now, she was even more satisfied with her decision to join the Special Forces. Gu Junjian left after giving his instructions. As soon as he left, a group of people surrounded Yunjian and introduced themselves to her. Yunjian finally got to know him. Including himself, there were only 7 people here. Among the 7 people, there were 3 girls and 4 boys. From this, it could be seen that among the Special Forces, boys' stamina was indeed better than girls. Just as the group was introducing themselves, a woman's sarcastic voice sounded, "Humph, childish. They really look like a bunch of idiots who have never seen the world." The voice belonged to the other girl besides Chu Ning. Ever since Yunjian arrived, this girl hadn't made a sound, nor had she walked over. Now that she was snorting, people couldn't help but take another look at her. Yunjian ignored her. "That's just how she is. That's why I was so lonely here before. I didn't even have a girl to talk to." Chu Ning spat at the girl and explained to Yunjian. After saying that, Chu Ning couldn't help but yell at the girl, "Jiang Weiwei, you're the idiot." After yelling angrily, Chu Ning turned to look at Yunjian and chuckled. "But she's the most powerful one in our group. We can't deny that. But with her personality, not many people can stand her. You'll know in the future." Chu Ning grinned as she said that. Yunjian nodded. Pursing her lips, she also smiled slightly. After everyone introduced themselves, they were no longer familiar with each other and returned to their own training grounds to begin training. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.